Chapter 1619. The experienced Zhou Dafu had traveled through the barbarian territories for many years, but he had never discovered that the barbarians were so easy to deal with. Transaction after transaction was completed without the slightest bit of sloppiness. The prices were low, and the profits were high. It was simply unimaginable. A great profit, a complete and utter profit. This trip was equal to 10 trips in previous years. In order to curry favor with the Marquis, these barbarians were willing to stop at nothing. The only thing they didn't do was pay him money and give him things for free. In the past, Zhou Dafu would have made a profit, but he would still feel uneasy. After all, what the Marquis did in the barbarian territories was too much of a taboo. But this time, when he returned to the capital to report on his work, nothing happened. The Marquis was even promoted. What was there to worry about? He quietly calculated the profits he would receive after this transaction was completed. The entire Desolate Man team was happy. They felt that following the Marquis Zhongwu to work for them was a blessing they couldn't obtain even in 10 lifetimes. Of course, making money was making money. Zhou Dafu didn't interfere with anything he shouldn't have. These barbarians were constantly hinting at him. Wasn't it because they wanted to get close to the Marquis? Humph humph. They knew what was proper. Money could be earned, but words could not be spoken. The result was that the barbarians, who had lost a fat piece of meat, did not receive any response. They cursed in their hearts and cursed Zhou Dafu's ancestors for dozens of generations. But when they turned around and saw him, they smiled and warmly greeted him. Sometimes, the strong barbarians of the various tribes even made themselves feel aggrieved. These people had never thought that one day they would end up in such a situation in front of the Desolate Man. Zhou Dafu could pretend to be ignorant, but as the saying goes, you're the one who takes advantage of others. The old chief of the Green Willow tribe, who was in pain but happy at the same time, soon felt tormented. He hesitated again and again. If he didn't go find the Desolate Man, Marquis Zhongwu, then the powerhouses who had given him gifts would fall out with him. He clenched his teeth and braced himself. Luckily, things went smoothly. After they settled in the camp, Marquis Zhongwu, who had been busy cultivating, quickly received him. "Greetings, Marquis." The old chief bowed. Qin Yu looked at him and thought for a moment. He smiled and said, "Old chief, your face is glowing. It seems that you have been very lucky recently." The old chief bitterly smiled and waved his hands. "Marquis, don't laugh at me." He took out a storage ring and handed it over with both hands. "This is half of the gifts we received recently. Now our Green Willow tribe is penniless, and we need to spend money on all aspects. I'm shameless enough to take advantage of you, Marquis." Qin Yu looked at the storage ring in his hand. "I don't need this. Consider it as rent to Marquis." He stomped on the ground. "After all, our team of Desolate Men is making money every day. It's all thanks to the tribe leader's willingness to give us this place." The old patriarch hesitated for a moment. He looked up at Qin Yu's expression and nodded as he put away the storage ring. His smile became even brighter as he said, "Lord Marquis is such a generous renter. Even if there is another stack, our Green Willow tribe will never have too many of them." Of course, he knew that the so-called rent was just an excuse. What Marquis Zhongwu really cared about was the attitude the Green Willow tribe showed when facing the allied forces of the 4 tribes. This was what it meant to return a plum for a peach. Because of this, he hesitated for a moment before putting away the storage ring. If he insisted on giving it away, that wouldn't be good. It might cause the Marquis Zhongwu to misunderstand that the Azure Willow tribe was asking for more. It would be better for them to be even. Qin Yu smiled and gestured with his hand. "Don't just stand there and talk. Patriarch, please sit down. I brought some tea leaves from the Western Desolate. The taste isn't bad. Please have a taste." He reached out for the teapot, but the old patriarch hurriedly stopped him. "I don't dare to trouble Marquis. I can do it myself." He poured a cup of tea and took 2 sips. The old patriarch gave a thumbs up. Good tea, good tea." Qin Yu faintly smiled. "It looks like the patriarch didn't come here today just to split the profits with me. If there is something you want to say, then speak directly." The old patriarch revealed a surprised expression. He coughed and said, "Marquis is wise. Us barbarians have an old saying. If you eat your neighbor's sheep or cows, then you must return their fertilizer. In short, our Azure Willow tribe has already received a great deal of gifts, so we need to do something for them. Looking at Qin Yu's complexion, he took out a sheepskin scroll from his chest. On this, there are several tribes that have given you the most gifts. Each one of them is rich and powerful, and they're the wealthiest people in our western desolate lands. They have already promised that as long as Marquis is willing to help, they will give you a great reward. They will definitely satisfy Marquis. Qin Yu drank his tea, his fingers tapping the table. The old patriarch regained his composure. He hurriedly said, Marquis, rest assured that our Azure Willow tribe has already conducted a screening ahead of time. We guarantee that none of the tribes on this list participated in what happened before. Qin Yu smiled. Patriarch is thoughtful. Then, I will take a look. He paused for a moment and continued, but I cannot guarantee whether or not I will choose one of the tribes. The old patriarch smiled and nodded. When I accepted the gifts, it was only a promise to deliver this list to Marquis. Now, I have fulfilled my end of the bargain. As for what Marquis chooses in the end, that is your own matter. My Azure Willow tribe will have no objections. On the sheepskin scroll were the names of 6 barbarian tribes. Qin Yu looked over it from top to bottom. Then he put down his hand and fell silent. He needed to continue building the world-breaking token, otherwise he wouldn't be able to stabilize the Western Desolate. This was also Qin Yu's main goal in entering the territory of the barbarians. In fact, during this period of time, although he had been cultivating, he already had some plans in mind. As for the arrangement of the world-breaking token, he couldn't just casually choose a place. For instance, this time, along with the materials that were delivered to Qin Yu, there was also a marked map. The Stone God tribe was one of the targets that the Western Desolate had drawn up. It just happened to be on a sheepskin scroll, and it was ranked first. The old patriarch calmly drank his tea. As he said, as long as he delivered the list to Qin Yu, he would have completed his task. As for who he chose in the end, that was up to Marquis Zhongwu. He was a truly intelligent person. Patriarch, Lord Marquis, please speak. The old patriarch laid down his teacup. Qin Yu smiled. He tapped the sheepskin scroll with his finger. The first-ranked Stone God tribe. Did they give you the most gifts? The old patriarch blushed red. He nodded. I wouldn't dare to hide anything from Lord Marquis. The Stone God tribe sent me a stone essence that was produced when their tribe's totem evolved in the early years. It can greatly accelerate the growth of my tribe's divine willow totem. In terms of value and practicality, it is indeed the highest. However, the fundamental reason why the Stone God tribe is first is not because of this. Lord Marquis knows that my tribe's divine willow totem suffered from thunder tribulation in the early years, and we have been struggling to survive. The Green Willow tribe's strength has declined, and their status has plummeted. The reason we have been able to maintain our territory for so many years, and even though there are constant small conflicts, no one dares to bully us, is all because of the Stone God tribe's help. My Green Willow tribe has good relations with the Stone God tribe to begin with. Even when the 4 great tribes joined forces to threaten them, the Stone God tribe clearly expressed their opposition, giving them a great deal of pressure. Qin Yu nodded. He believed that in this aspect, the old patriarch wouldn't speak carelessly. After thinking for several breaths of time, he smiled. Then this time, I will choose the Stone God tribe. The old patriarch was overjoyed. He stood up and bowed. Thank you, Lord Marquis. Qin Yu said, friendship is friendship, but we cannot lack anything. Patriarch, do you understand what I mean? The old patriarch patted his chest. Lord Marquis, rest assured that the Stone God tribe's totem god stone has been stuck at a bottleneck for over 200 years. Because of this, the entire tribe has pulled out countless strands of hair. As long as Lord Marquis is willing to help, even if you want the stars in the sky, they will agree. The old patriarch blinked and lowered his voice. Moreover, I won't hide it from Lord Marquis. The background of the Stone God tribe is among the best. Qin Yu raised an eyebrow. The patriarch doesn't seem to have finished speaking. The old patriarch rubbed his face. He forced a smile. Lord Marquis has good eyesight. He hesitated for a moment, and then lowered his voice even further. I heard, cough, cough, this is just a rumor. Around 600 to 700 years ago, the stone god tribe, because of some special characteristics of their totem god stone, caused a star to fall from the heavens. It changed directions and fell directly into the tribe's camp. Normally, this should have been a disaster. And in truth, the stone god tribe did suffer many casualties. But afterwards, it was said that the patriarch of the stone god tribe grinned so hard that his teeth nearly popped out, as if he had picked up some amazing treasure. Chinyu glanced at the old patriarch, a thoughtful look in his eyes. Ah, that's what happened. Lord Marquis, please consider it yourself. I won't disturb you any further. Farewell, farewell. The old patriarch stood up and bid his farewells. A star falling from the heavens. It seemed that this was some sort of good treasure. In the past, the stone god tribe's patriarch had probably shown off too much. It was indeed wise not to show off one's wealth. Otherwise, even if several hundred years passed, there might still be problems. Chinyu's lips curved up in a smile as he teased the old patriarch of the Green Willow tribe. In truth, he understood that the reason the old patriarch had brought up the matter of taking the initiative was because he didn't want Chinyu to learn of it from others in the future and ruin the harmonious relationship between the two sides. At this time, Meaty-Meaty's voice sounded out in his ears. I want this piece of fallen star. Chinyu rubbed his nose. He helplessly said, You couldn't have been eavesdropping all this time, right? I think you should at least give people a bit of privacy. Meaty-Meaty coldly sneered. Privacy? Fine, I can give it to you. As for the matter of the stone god tribe, I'll have to trouble you, Marquis Zhongwu, to personally handle it. Chinyu choked on his words. He bitterly smiled. Fine, it's all my fault. Miss Meaty-Meaty can do whatever she wants. Humph. Well, did you wake up again? It's been several days. I'm sure you're hungry. Chinyu said as he walked out. Hurry up and have a chefs of the Root tribe cook up some food. I'll come over and eat with you. It's just too boring staying here by myself. It was rare for Meaty-Meaty not to mock or ridicule him. After a brief moment of silence, she said yes. This abnormal action scared Chinyu so much that he nearly turned and left. He wondered if something had happened to Meaty-Meaty today, right? Outside the treehouse, Meaty-Meaty clenched her teeth. She thought that this bastard Chinyu was truly hateful to the extreme. After hesitating again and again, Chinyu still couldn't bear to give up this chance to freeload and eat. Luckily, although Meaty-Meaty's complexion was ugly, the entire process went smoothly. He was too full again. Chinyu felt a bit intoxicated. He narrowed his eyes and glanced at Meaty-Meaty across from him. I think I'll need to sleep for a while. Can I borrow some space? Meaty-Meaty frowned, a look of disgust on her face. But she coldly snorted and waved her hand. Immediately, another branch came over and made a similar soft couch for Chinyu. Haha, thanks. Chinyu took a step back and turned around. He thought that there was no one else who could enjoy this more. Other than that, it was just two trees, yet they were actually so adept at serving people. Who knew how they were trained? It was really difficult for them. The strength of the wine was indeed great. In addition, he had been in a constant state of cultivation during this period of time. His mind was exhausted, and he soon fell asleep. On the other side of the couch, little Meaty was taking small sips of wine. She glanced at the sleeping Chinyu, and her lips twitched. She thought that this boy's courage wasn't small at all. He actually dared to fall asleep right in front of her. But her eyes quietly softened. After a moment of hesitation, she stood up and squatted down in front of Chinyu, earnestly looking into his eyes. No matter how exquisite the method of changing one's appearance was, it was all an illusion to flesh and blood, because what she observed was the soul of a living creature. He was clearly a stranger to her, and she had no impression of him at all. But why couldn't she control her own thoughts? She lifted a hand and gently traced Chinyu's eyebrows with her meaty fingers. She furrowed her brows and withdrew her hand. She took out a piece of white gauze from somewhere and rubbed it with all her might until it was burnt to ashes. Humph! With a cold sneer, she returned to the couch and sat down. Forget everything that happened just now. If anyone dares to remember anything, I will burn them down. The two flattering trees didn't move at all, without the least bit of response. But the truth was that this was a truly brilliant response. We are just two trees that don't know anything. Since we don't know anything, we certainly won't be able to hear what our master is saying. But this Qin Yu, his status in her master's heart really wasn't ordinary. It seemed that she would have to treat him a bit better in the future. Perhaps one day, she would be able to sleep on the same bed as her master. Who? A mass of flames appeared out of thin air, covering the two trees at the same time. Massive tracts of branches were instantly burned to ashes. The busying roots on the ground all clutched their heads and fell to the ground. Little Meaty clenched her teeth and said, "Do you two really want to die?" The two trees shivered. But in reality, the branches that were burned down by the flames were restored to their original state in the blink of an eye. After all, to a certain degree, they could be said to be immortal beings of this world. The so-called immortal referred to the fact that they were extremely difficult to kill. Otherwise, even if they lived for a long time, they could still be chopped to death with a single saber strike. As Qin Yu was sleeping soundly after eating and drinking to his heart's content, the old patriarch of the Green Willow tribe returned to the encampment. He had already found the elder of the Stone God tribe who had stayed behind to inform him of the good news. "Thank you, patriarch." Across from him, the Stone God tribe elder's face flushed red with excitement. The old patriarch coughed. "There is something I should remind you of. Tell that old monkey that you must prepare the most precious reward for your Stone God tribe. Otherwise, if the desolate Marquis Zhongwu isn't satisfied, I fear there will be other changes. At that time, your family's totem god stone will be enraged. I fear that old monkey and all of you will be cursed to death." The Stone God tribe elder's eyes widened. He looked at the old patriarch across from him, his lips trembling. The old patriarch had an innocent expression. "What are you looking at me for? Did you think that even if I didn't say anything, the desolate Marquis Zhongwu wouldn't know? Humph humph. If you want to blame someone, then blame that old monkey, who told him to be too arrogant in the past. He said some nonsense about fortune and disaster, and now he is suffering retribution." The Stone God tribe elder was well aware that the old patriarch of the Green Willow tribe had grown up together with him, and they were old friends. It was common for them to curse each other, so he wasn't angered by this. He bitterly smiled. He probably thought that the old patriarch wasn't wrong. His patriarch was good at everything, but he loved to show off in this aspect. Even after so many years, he hadn't changed in the slightest. The Stone God tribe elder cupped his hands together and said, "I will report this matter to the patriarch." Chapter 16:20. Elder Stone God hurriedly left. As he watched this person leave, the old tribal patriarch's expression became tranquil once more. He thought that this old monkey wasn't stupid and would surely know what to do after being reminded. After all, while Starfall was good, it was still an extraordinary treasure. But after several hundred years, the Stone God tribe still hadn't found a way to use it. Exchanging a piece of fallen star for a totem god stone to evolve was a very good deal. After all, to a barbarian tribe, the strength of a tribe's totem affected many aspects. It could be called the foundation of a tribe. The next day, Elder Stone God hurriedly returned and expressed his agreement to Marquis Zhongwu's request. The old tribal patriarch frowned. "Since you've agreed, is Starfall with you?" Elder Stone God shook his head. The old tribal patriarch's frown deepened. "What does this old monkey mean? He's asking for help. He doesn't even have the slightest bit of sincerity." Elder Stone God bitterly smiled. "Patriarch, don't be angry. You're old friends with my tribal patriarch, so how could you not know his personality? Although he is a bit, cough cough, he likes to exchange tribal treasures with others, he is still a cautious person. The tribal treasures are hidden deep, and Starfall is especially deep. Even if we want to take it out, it will take some time." The old tribal patriarch covered his face and sighed. This was really shameful. Across from him, the elder of the Stone God tribe also had an embarrassed expression. He braced himself and said, "But old tribal patriarch, don't worry. My tribal patriarch is working hard. Once Marquis Zhongwu arrives, he will definitely obtain it." He took a deep breath and suppressed his strange emotions. The old tribal patriarch wryly smiled and stood up. What else can we do? Let's go. I will bring you to see Marquis Zhongwu. But whether or not things will change will depend on your luck. Elder Stone God bitterly smiled. You must help put in a few good words for us. My tribe is sincere. The old tribal patriarch coldly sneered. This time, they waited for a moment before being received by Marquis Zhongwu. Patriarch, who is this? The old tribal patriarch said, Marquis, this person is Elder Stone God. You can call him Stone San. Sure San, who hadn't been called Sure San for many years, bowed. Greetings, Marquis Zhongwu. Qinyu nodded. Elder Stone, please rise. It seems the patriarch has already conveyed my intentions to your Stone God tribe. Sure San respectfully said, Yes, my tribe is willing to offer Starfall as compensation to Marquis, but he looked over with a pleading expression. The patriarch sneered coldly. After a moment of hesitation, he decided to help explain the cause and effect of the matter. Hi, I'm not afraid that Marquis will laugh at me, but this old friend of mine really makes me speechless. It's his own treasure, yet he treats it as if it's stolen. Even taking it out is so troublesome. But this old man can guarantee to Marquis that the Stone God Division will not go back on their word. When Marquis arrives, you can directly get it. Seeing that Qinyu didn't respond, the old patriarch clenched his teeth. This time, I will go with the Marquis. Sanshure's face was filled with gratitude. He knew that the old chief of the Green Willow tribe had really gone all out to help. Qinyu thought for a moment and slowly nodded. Since the old patriarch vouches for us, I naturally believe him. Then, I ask you two to wait a moment while I make some preparations. Sure San was overjoyed. Many thanks, Lord Marquis. The old patriarch stroked his beard, feeling proud of himself. Marquis, there's no need to be anxious. We'll just wait. When Qinyu stood up and left, Sure San turned and bowed. Old patriarch, you are truly worthy of being our Stone God Division's best friend. I truly have to thank you this time. The old patriarch faintly smiled. He lightly waved his hand. It's fine. I just happen to be a bit more familiar with Marquis Zhongwu. He was inwardly pleased with himself and felt even more gratitude towards Qinyu. It was often said that when friends got along, they had to give and take. This was the way to go in the long run. If one blindly gave or blindly took, neither was the way to go in the long run. And several hundred years ago, when the Green Willow tribe suffered a calamity, the Stone God Division continued to help them for several hundred years. This was a great knot in the old patriarch's heart. If it weren't for this, then if it were anyone else, even if they were good friends, he wouldn't have worked so hard. The advancement of the Stone God Division's totem godstone was a grand event. If he helped in this aspect, then when the old patriarch saw his old friend in the future, he would be able to stand tall and proud. Although it seemed as if he was too greedy, the truth was that this was how true friends should be. When Qinyu said he was preparing, that was only an excuse. He was only going to ask little Meaty to see when it would be convenient for her to leave. He arrived beneath two large trees. Before he could speak, a branch fell in front of him and little Meaty walked down. She looked at Qinyu in front of her and frowned. Then, she composed herself. What is it? It's nothing. Little Meaty reached out a hand and beckoned behind her. You two come with me. Rumble, rumble. The earth shook and shattered. Countless thick roots pulled out from the ground, and the two large trees rapidly shrank. Finally, they were only the size of a fingernail. They jumped up and landed on little Meaty's earlobes, firmly clinging to them like two exquisite earrings. Qinyu frowned, a deep look in his eyes. Is something wrong? Little Meaty thought for a moment. She said, I don't know, but I've been feeling a bit uncomfortable lately, as if something is about to happen. As she spoke, she looked up at the skies. Qinyu took a deep breath. I will go and refuse them. We won't go. Little Meaty shook her head. Her tone was calm and indifferent. What will come will come. You can't avoid it. In short, you have to be careful. Qinyu's heart chilled. For little Meaty to reveal a bit of a lack of confidence, it could be seen that there was a great danger lurking in the unknown. Little Meaty lightly said, Let's go. A moment later, several carriages left the camp. The news that the Stone God tribe had taken the lead and asked Marquis Zhongwu to help soon spread out. For a time, envy, jealousy, and hate swelled up like a raging tide. But towards the Green Willow tribe's choice, there was nothing they could say. After all, for these last several hundred years, the Stone God tribe had taken care of the Green Willow tribe. This was a matter that everyone knew about. Burning a cold stove had actually produced a massive lucky chance. This caused many Goliath tribe powerhouses to feel resentful. At the same time, their enthusiasm towards the Green Willow tribe became even higher. The Stone God tribe was indeed powerful, but within the western savage lands, there were many great Goliath tribes that could compare with them. Why did the desolate Marquis Zhongwu choose the Stone God tribe? The meaning behind this was obvious. As for why the great Goliath tribes were so impatient, the reason was simple. It was because no one knew how long the desolate Marquis Zhongwu's deal would last. Before this, when the Black Tower, Heavy Mountain, River Overlook, and Purple Forest tribes joined forces to threaten the desolate Willow tribe, the other Goliath tribes had remained silent. The four tribes were tyrannical in strength, but the most fundamental reason was that they also had similar suspicions. The Goliath and desolate tribes had a blood feud that lasted for generations. They had fought each other for endless years and wished for the other to disappear, for their bloodlines to be severed. Would the desolate Marquis Zhongwu be so kind as to help the Goliath tribes advance their totems? Moreover, after he helped the Golden Crow tribe and the Green Willow tribe, he didn't encounter any trouble upon returning to the Western Desolate. Instead, he was even promoted. Even if one thought with their knees, they knew that something was wrong. As for why the Holy Land would take the initiative to protect Marquis Zhongwu and what the cause and effect was, they couldn't guess and didn't want to guess. In short, inviting the desolate Marquis Zhongwu as soon as possible was the most important matter. Thus, the Green Willow tribe didn't fall silent because of the old patriarch's departure. Rather, it became even more lively. Generous gifts were sent in without any regard for their lives. They tried to find all sorts of connections, shouting that if they didn't accept it, it meant that they were looking down on them. The group hurrying towards the Stone God tribe was quiet. On the road, Qin had already obtained information about the totem god stone, as well as a fragment of its main body that had been specially brought over and delivered to him. This fragment was the size of a knuckle and was pure black. Beneath the sunlight, it shimmered with a jade-like luster. Little Meaty had already taken a look and indicated that there were no problems. Although Qin never doubted Little Meaty's abilities, he still nodded. In fact, after Little Meaty told him that something was wrong, Qin Yu's mind was in a highly vigilant state. As he played with the totem god stone fragment, Qin Yu focused his senses, but he couldn't sense anything strange. Little Meaty glanced at him. "Don't waste your energy. If you have the time, you might as well cultivate." She leaned back on a soft couch, her eyes half closed. "With your current boundary, if something really happens, you won't be able to help." Qin Yu's eyes rolled back. He thought that outside the commander's tent in the border army, a powerful ruler realm assassin had been severely wounded by him. Little Meaty hadn't seen his current strength. Little Meaty coldly sneered. "Fine, you are strong. If something happens, remember to stand in front of me." Qin Yu decisively refused. "A person should know their own limits. Thank you, Miss Little Meaty, for reminding me despite the harsh advice." Little Meaty rubbed her temples, a helpless look on her face. She thought that Qin Yu was becoming increasingly thick-skinned these days. She touched her earlobe. The earring attached to it emitted a faint green light, like rippling green waves. A sharp light flashed in Qin Yu's eyes. "Before you left, what you said to me, was it a double meaning?" Little Meaty changed her position, her back facing Qin Yu. "Think about it yourself." Her curves were mesmerizing. Perhaps it was because he had drunk a great deal of wine during this time, but Qin Yu discovered that he couldn't control himself. This was really seeking death. Beads of sweat instantly appeared on his forehead. Qin Yu quickly looked away, closing his eyes and taking a deep breath. Little Meaty furrowed her eyebrows together. But deep in her eyes, there was an imperceptible trace of smug satisfaction. One day later, they arrived at the Stone Divinity tribe. The reason that they had been able to look after the troubled Green Willow tribe for several hundred years was because the territories of the two tribes were extremely close. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for the two patriarchs to become friends when they were young. Outside the carriage, Third Elder Stone's respectful voice sounded out. Marquis Zhongwu, the patriarch has brought people to personally welcome you. The carriage door opened and Qin Yu stepped out. But a step ahead of him was the old patriarch of the Green Willow tribe. He jumped onto the ground and walked over to the side of a thin old man. He raised a hand to measure the difference in height between the two of them and sneered, "I haven't seen you for over 100 years, but your head hasn't changed at all." The thin old man rolled his eyes. "How old are you? Aren't you childish? The little ones are all watching from the side. You old thing, you don't care about face, but I do." The people of the Stone Divinity tribe had strange expressions. It was hard for them to endure. The old patriarch curled his lips. "They're honored guests today, so I'll leave you some face. Go and get to know Marquis Zhongwu." As he spoke, he winked at the thin old man. The thin old man nodded. The old patriarch let out a breath of relief. He turned and laughed. "Marquis, this is the patriarch of the Stone Divinity tribe, Old Stone." "Greetings, Marquis." The Stone Divinity tribe patriarch, who was called Old Stone, bowed with a smile. Behind him, the barbarians of the Stone Divinity tribe also bowed. Qin Yu smiled. "Patriarch, there's no need to be so polite. Everyone, please rise." After a brief exchange of greetings, the Stone Divinity tribe patriarch gestured with his hand. "Everyone, please enter the tribe. We have already prepared a banquet to welcome our honored guests." Chapter 16:21. The banquet of the Stone God tribe was extremely smooth. Tribe leader Shurgan and a group of elders were all present. They expressed their gratitude to Marquis Zhongwu for coming all the way to help them. In short, he said a whole bunch of good things, making them feel at home, and everything was very appropriate. Of course, what was more important was that at the beginning of the banquet, the Shurgan patriarch handed over the starfall he had just taken from the tribe's mystic land to Qin Yu. He also expressed his apologies and hoped that the Marquis wouldn't take it to heart. Qin Yu smiled and waved his hand, indicating that it was fine. He took starfall, glanced at it, and then put away. The item was a good item. He could confirm at the moment he laid his hands on it. However, since Little Meat had asked for it by name, it was better not to look at it. Otherwise, if he saw it and pulled it out, he would be the one hurting himself. The old patriarch of the Green Willow tribe accompanied Qin Yu to the banquet. It could be seen that his relationship with Patriarch Stonebold was quite good. Laughing and scolding, the two of them seemed to be at odds with each other, but they managed to maintain the lively atmosphere of the banquet without making others feel discourteous. This was a great test of their tacit understanding. The Stone God tribe was extremely enthusiastic. Qin Yu drank a great deal of wine, but he didn't know if it was because he had drunk too many of the wine fruit from the wine tree, but his capacity for liquor had been tempered and he actually didn't feel drunk at all. Of course, although this was the truth, he couldn't show it. Pretending to be drunk was also a skill. Not only could he avoid suffering, but he could also save precious time. Another reason was that Little Meaty was not at the banquet. Even though she knew that this distance was practically nothing to Little Meaty, she still did not want to be too far away. Cough, cough. After all, it was not safe for her to be alone. Seeing that Marquis Zhongwu had drunk too much, regardless of whether it was real or fake, it was enough as long as his intentions were there. Thinking that his family's hospitality was considered polite, the Shurgan tribe leader decisively stopped him. The tribe's elders took turns and ended the banquet with a smile. They ordered people to send Marquis Zhongwu back to his residence to rest. The old patriarch of the Green Willow tribe greeted Qin Yu and said that he wanted to stay here. He wanted to use the excuse of being drunk to say a few words to his old friend and then have him return first. Once Qin Yu left, the elders bowed and drew back. Shurgan stood up and said, "Let's go. We'll find another place to continue drinking." The old patriarch nodded. Did you make any smoked fish? Shergan said, "A few days ago, I guessed that you would come, so I ordered people to prepare it. Have a taste." A moment later, the two patriarchs, who had known each other for more than 1,000 years, sat down in a small stone courtyard. There were only 4 dishes. One of them was the smoked fish that was mentioned earlier, and the other 3 were common wild vegetables. They were not exquisite and could not be compared to the delicacies at the banquet. The patriarch of the Green Willow tribe revealed a smile. "Not bad, old monkey. It's been hundreds of years, but you still remember my taste." Shergan coldly snorted. "Do you still remember that it has been several hundred years since we sat down to eat together?" A look of shame appeared on the tribe chief's face. He took a deep breath and let out a breath before cupping his hands and saying, "You know me. I don't easily lower my head to others, but I was wrong in this matter. I'll be leaving first." He poured the wine and downed it in one gulp. On the other side, Shergan's expression softened a bit. He picked up his cup and drank with him. "I've heard about what happened this time from San. You've helped our stone god division so much. You can stand tall in the future." The old patriarch's eyebrows danced. "Of course. I'm not trying to boast, but if it weren't for me desperately fighting for him, would Marquis Zhongwu have appeared here? Old monkey, you should properly thank me." It wasn't the wine that intoxicated him, but the wine that intoxicated him. The knot in his heart of many years had been unraveled. At the banquet, the old patriarch had a clear and bright expression. But now, after drinking a cup of wine, he revealed a bit of drunkenness. He narrowed his eyes and happily smiled. Thus, he didn't notice the unnatural look that flashed across Shergan's face. Shergan lifted a cup of wine. "Thank you, my old friend. 4 dishes and several jugs of wine." The old patriarch drank himself into a drunken stupor. The smoked fish was completely eaten, but according to him, the taste had changed and wasn't the same as it was in the past. Shergan looked at the old patriarch who was slumped across the table, fast asleep. He slowly said, "Old friend, everything in this world can change." He ordered someone to send him back to rest. Shergan stood up in the small courtyard, looking up at the bright moon above his head. His eyes were dim and his back lonely. After returning to his dwelling, Chinyu waited for the people of the Stone God tribe to leave. Then, he stood up and knocked on Little Meaty's door. "It's not locked. Come in." Hearing the calm voice from within, Chinyu relaxed a little. He really was a bit worried. He was afraid that some accident would occur before he even knew what was going on. The room was brightly lit. Whether it was the Mind-Dwelling or the Imperial Capital's Marquis Zhongwu mansion, it was similar. She didn't seem to like the dark. Little Meaty was drinking tea. He didn't know if it was because of the light or if it was just Chinyu's imagination, but he felt that Little Meaty's outline had become incomparably soft. "I've obtained Starfall. I'll bring it to you and see if there are any problems." As he spoke, he took it out and placed it in front of Little Meaty. Within the room, countless starlight shined like threads of spring rain. It was filled with a mysterious and hazy sense of beauty. Starfall was a black stone the size of a child's fist. It wasn't conspicuous at all during the day, but at night it shined with starlight. Little Meaty looked at it and nodded. "There's no problem. The Stone God tribe doesn't have the methods to tamper with Starfall." Thinking for a moment, she said, "This piece of Starfall is very precious. At least to me it is. And the reason I was able to obtain it was indirectly because of your help. So, the old debts you owed me from before will be written off today. We can be considered even." Paying off old debts was originally something worth being happy about for Chinyu. But for some unknown reason, a bit of restlessness gushed out from the depths of his heart. He took a deep breath and stared at Little Meaty. "Tell me the truth. Is there really a major problem? Even if you think I don't need to care about you so much, you should at least understand that I really can't do without your help right now. So, if there is anything you must tell me." Little Meaty shook her head. "You brat, consider yourself speaking the truth. But I've already told you the truth, at least for now. There isn't any problem." She waved her hand and began to drive him away. "Starfall is very useful to me. I'm preparing to eat it now. Hurry up and leave. Don't waste my time." Chinyu took a deep breath. "I'm going to stand guard outside. Otherwise, I won't be able to rest easy. Without waiting for little Meaty to refuse, he turned and left. That's right, you're right. With my current cultivation boundary, you might think I'm weak in the future. But when it comes to being on guard and warning, I am still competent enough. Don't drive me away. I won't leave even if you do. With a loud bang, the door slammed shut. Feeling Qin Yu's aura from outside, little Meaty curled her lips. She picked up the starfall on the table. As this thing fell into her hand, starlight began to shine. It was thick and viscous, as if it were tangible flames. As it burned, the pitch-black body rapidly decomposed, releasing masses of starlight. Little Meaty swallowed the starlight into her stomach and burped. She patted her belly and narrowed her eyes, revealing a satisfied expression. The strength contained within this piece of starfall was far greater than she had imagined. After completely refining and absorbing it, it was enough for her to display some of her true abilities within a limited range. Qin was still outside the door. Little Meaty was too lazy to bother with him. She walked over to the bed and closed her eyes, falling asleep. To some existences, sleeping was the best form of cultivation. This was a matter that left one envious but unable to obtain. The Stone God Tribe's forbidden land was a place that Stonebold had marked out long ago to store the tribe's most precious treasures. Besides him, only 2 or 3 tribe elders had the qualifications to enter. After sending away the drunken Green Willow tribe patriarch, he gazed at the moon for a long time. Then, he suddenly felt something in his heart and walked into the forbidden land. Although it was called a forbidden land, the truth was that it was only a giant cave that led to the totem Godstone. The space inside was enormous, and walking inside was like walking into an underground world. On the walls, there were special crystals that were naturally formed. In the darkness, they emitted a dazzling light of all colors. But now, he didn't know whether it was an illusion or not, but beneath the brilliant light of the cave, there was actually a trace of gloom. She has already eaten up the starfall and is refining it, Stonebold slowly said. This was the only thing that the Stone God Tribe had been able to accomplish in the last several hundred years after obtaining the starfall from the heavens. This should have been an incomparably sad matter, but today, it was incomparably crucial. There was no response, but Stonebold didn't care. It was as if the only reason he came here was to speak these words to himself. He turned and left, vanishing from the cave's exit. I'm really curious now. Just who are you? A woman spoke up from beneath a voluminous black robe. She looked at him with a deep and probing gaze. A white-robed youth that was as handsome as a banished immortal rolled his eyes. We agreed to cooperate, but only this once. Don't even think about probing me. A light chuckle sounded out from beneath the black robes. Of course, you have the final say. She stood up. Then I will go see them now. The white-robed youth nodded. But as she turned and walked several steps away, he suddenly said, There is something I must remind you not to say. Otherwise, it is likely she will discover it. At that time, you will all die, and you will all die miserably. The black-robed youth paused for a moment. He nodded and walked away. The white-robed immortal youth fell onto his bed. He hugged his blanket and rolled around, wrapping himself tightly in it. I'm so scared, so scared. I'm afraid I've gone crazy. I actually dared to join forces with these idiots to plot against that person. I have no choice but to go crazy. After so many years of suffering, I've finally managed to open my eyes and see the world. If I don't knock down that great witch, how can I live a carefree and happy life? How can I ride a sword and ride a horse to the ends of the world? The white-robed youth was finally wrapped up in his blanket, leaving only his head sticking out. As he gasped for breath, he muttered, If I die, then I die. I have to try, otherwise I won't be willing. The night passed peacefully. Outside, Chinyu opened his eyes. He wasn't cultivating. Although he was a bit tired because of his nerves, his mind was still tense. Even so, a sharp light still surged in his eyes. He could sense that little Meaty was still sleeping. This caused his eyes to darken even more. For little Meaty to have no choice but to sleep to digest Starfall, it could be seen that this matter placed a certain burden on her. And the reason she was so impatient was because she didn't have absolute confidence. Chapter 16:22. In truth, this was the first time that Qin Yu truly felt Meaty's restlessness. He raised his hand and rubbed the space between his eyebrows. He couldn't help but feel a little irritated, but he still took a deep breath and forced it to the bottom of his heart. He could not afford to panic. Otherwise, he would only end up dying even faster. After waking up from a hangover, the Green Willow Tribe patriarch washed up and went to look for Qin Yu. His complexion changed, and he hurried here. When he saw Qin Yu standing with his hands behind his back, he let out a long breath. Last night, he had just bragged and pulled out the knot in his heart. If things were to change, he really wouldn't know what to do. "Marquis, you're here. What's the matter with Madam?" Qin Yu shook his head. "I'm fine. I slept with the Madam last night." The old patriarch blinked, a teasing look on his face. "Marquis is in such a good mood. It's really good to be young. At my age, even if my body is still fine, I don't have that kind of impulse anymore." Qin Yu glanced at the old Green Willow Tribe patriarch. He thought to himself, "Your luck is truly good. It's just that little Meaty is currently sleeping. Otherwise, if you heard these words, you would have died." However, he wasn't sure if little Meaty would still be able to sense the outside world after falling asleep. After all, things like common sense didn't apply to little Meaty. With a light cough, Qin Yu changed the topic. "Patriarch, why are you looking for me? Did the Stone God Tribe urge me?" The old patriarch waved his hand. No. Last night, after the Marquis left, I drank a lot of wine with the old monkey. He's as drunk as mud and probably hasn't woken up yet." "Oomph." A cold laugh echoed in his ears. Shurgan was expressionless. "Old blockhead, you're already so old, yet you still love to boast." A trace of embarrassment appeared on the patriarch's face as he grinned. "Old monkey, you've gone too far. The Marquis worked hard last night, and you're rushing him so early in the morning. Aren't you being too insensible?" Qin Yu took a deep breath. He thought that it was fine if you liked to brag, but your ability to court death is truly extraordinary. Just now, he had already sensed a slight change in the aura of little Meaty in the room. It was hard to say if he had heard the first sentence, but this time, he had most likely heard it. A moment of silence for the old patriarch. Shurgan coldly sneered, completely ignoring him. He cupped his hands together and said, "Good morning, Marquis. This old man only came here to invite you to enjoy my tribe's spectacular sunrise. I have no intention of rushing you. After all, the totem godstone has been stuck at a bottleneck for over 200 years. There's no harm in waiting a few more days." As soon as his voice fell, a loud dong suddenly rang out from somewhere far away in the Stone God Tribe's encampment, and the ground beneath his feet trembled. Shurgan's face instantly revealed a trace of embarrassment. The old clan leader laughed out loud, his face full of mockery. "It seems like your words as the clan leader aren't that effective. TSK to SK. Hurry up and take it back, or else your family's totem godstone will drown you in its spittle." "It's fine. The totem godstone is old now, so it's more like a child. I've made Lord Marquis laugh at me." Stonebold's expression returned to normal. "I wonder if the madam has woken up yet? The sunrise is about to begin, and today is a day of full colors. If you miss it, you'll have to wait another month. I fear that Lord Marquis and the madam will miss this beautiful sunrise." The old clan leader didn't continue to rub salt into the wound. He smiled and nodded. "Old monkey is right. The Stone God Tribe's sunrise, especially the day of full colors, is one of the most famous sights in our great Goliath tribes. Lord Marquis shouldn't miss it." With a creaking sound, the door was pushed open from the inside. Little Meaty calmly walked out. She lightly said, "Then let's go take a look." Qin Yu glanced at her. Her aura hadn't changed at all. He hesitated for a moment and then nodded. Shurgan reached out a hand. "Lord Marquis, Madam, please follow me." After taking 2 steps forward, he coldly snorted. As for the other person who came to make up the numbers, if he's willing to come, then he can also come. The old clan leader smiled in satisfaction. "Old monkey, at least you know what to do. Otherwise, I would have made you completely drunk tonight." Shirgan remained expressionless. "Will you die if you don't brag?" Little Meaty ignored the bickering between the two clan leaders. She was the first to leave. Yu smiled apologetically. He didn't explain anything. He quickly walked beside her. "How is it?" he asked in a quiet voice. Little Meaty nodded. The reason that the Stone God tribe Sunrise became a popular sight amongst the great Goliath tribes was because of special geographical factors. The tribe station was located on a massive rocky beach. Countless large and small stones were either completely exposed or half buried in the ground. In the early morning, 9 suns leapt out from the earth, and the first ray of light sprinkled down. Because of the angle, the light shined on these stones, causing them to reflect a brilliant halo of light. It could be called a spectacular sight. In particular, on this day of the month, the totem god stone would breathe in and out, causing the destiny of the surrounding land to circulate, making this scene even more beautiful. Countless Goliath tribesmen came to watch, but most of them could only watch from afar, not daring to approach the station of the Stone God tribe. After all, every month when the totem god stone breathed in and out, the Stone God tribe would be vigilant and on guard to avoid any accidents. And in truth, the best observation point was at the peak of the mountain where the totem god stone lived. From there, one could overlook the entire land. They smoothly climbed to the peak. Not long after everyone stood still, a gust of wind blew away the clouds. The 9 suns leapt into the air at almost the same time. The early morning sunlight sprinkled down, illuminating the land. Countless large and small stones reflected light. All sorts of colors gathered together and fused together, forming all sorts of wonders. It was like the most gorgeous fireworks in the world. Suddenly, the phantom of a city appeared amidst the countless colors. It was incomparably clear, and one could even see people walking to and fro in the city. At this time, a 100,000-foot-long dragon suddenly broke into the scene. It roared as it flew over the city, casting a massive shadow over the ground. However, the people in the city seemed to have long since grown accustomed to this scene. Most of them merely raised their heads to take a glance before continuing on with their own business. The Green Willow tribe's patriarch's eyes widened, and he cried out, "Divine Dragon City! It's actually Divine Dragon City. I never thought that after 1,000 years, I would be able to see the shadow of this ancient city again." His expression was excited, and his face flushed red. Yu didn't know what Divine Dragon City was, but he keenly sensed that at this moment, Meaty was momentarily absent-minded. He turned his head, a questioning look in his eyes. Meaty shook her head, indicating that she was fine. Shirgan smiled faintly and said, "Lord Marquis and Madam are truly honored guests. The mirage of the Gravel Sea has only appeared 3 times in the past 1,000 years. The Divine Dragon City's image has only appeared today. I heard that those who can see Divine Dragon City will obtain the protection of an invisible draconic energy. In the future, everything will go smoothly." After a brief pause, his smile widened. "It looks like the advancement of my tribe's totem godstone is almost certain." Yu thought for a moment. He asked, "Captains, may I ask what the story behind Divine Dragon City is?" Shirgan's eyes lit up with surprise. He looked at the Green Willow tribe's patriarch and said, "Let him explain this matter." The old patriarch said, "In the past, I specially looked through the ancient records of Divine Dragon City, so I do know more about it." He lifted a hand and pointed. "In the legends, 100,000 years ago, a grand and majestic city once appeared in this world. It was built by a true dragon. How should I say it? The meaning of a true dragon is similar to the destiny spirit of the world. In this vast world, every time there is a cycle of reincarnation, a powerful life form will be born. This life form will inherit the destiny of the world and receive the protection of the world. This life form will endure 10,000 tribulations without being destroyed, forever existing." Shirgan lightly said, "There are some things that are best said clearly. There is nothing in this world that can truly exist forever. The destiny spirit of the world is indeed said to be able to live as long as the world itself, but there have been several changes in the past. Otherwise, in short, the cycle of all things withering away, the cycle of reincarnation, is the eternal and unchanging melody. The old patriarch frowned. Why don't you say it? Shurgan looked up at the sky. The old patriarch snorted and curled his lips. What I said just now isn't wrong. At least, according to the records of our barbarian race, the destiny spirit of the world has changed at least 4 times. The first destiny spirit of the world is a mystery, and no one knows where it came from. The second one is the master of Divine Dragon City that you and I see in front of us, an incomparably powerful true dragon. Afterwards, the true dragon perished for some unknown reason, and the true dragon city was annihilated along with it. Then, the third destiny spirit was born, the heavenly bull. As for the fourth, it is only half a destiny spirit, and it doesn't have a proper reason to come. Instead, it feels like it's trapped and cursed. The old patriarch looked at Chinyu. He cupped his hands together and hesitated for a moment. Lord Marquis is an important minister of the Western Wasteland, so you should know that your Western Wasteland has always had a great external threat. I'm not referring to us barbarians. Lord Marquis, please don't misunderstand. Chinyu waved his hand, indicating that it was fine. He slowly said, that race. The old patriarch nodded. That's right. His words were interrupted by Stonebrave. Lord Marquis knows these things better than you, so why would he need an old fellow like you to speak? Now, the 9 suns slowly rose into the sky. The dazzling brilliance of the world gradually faded away, and the phantom of Divine Dragon City in the skies began to vanish. Stonebrave smiled and said, my tribe has prepared some special barbarian dishes. Lord Marquis, madam, I ask that you enjoy your breakfast. Little Meaty suddenly said, what you said just now is a bit wrong. Stonebrave cupped his hands together. I ask madam to advise me. Little Meaty looked at the vanishing Divine Dragon City. She lightly said, in this world, there are indeed beings that are eternal and undying. In other words, they are the so-called long-lived species. It's just that you have never seen them before. After she finished speaking, she didn't explain any further. She turned and walked down the mountain. The 2 uniquely shaped earrings on her earlobes glowed with a faint green light. Chinyu said, Patriarch, sure, don't mind her. She's just like this. Stonebrave shook his head. I wouldn't dare. He looked at Little Meaty's back and frowned. There was a thoughtful look in his eyes. When Chinyu and Little Meaty walked far away, the old patriarch of the Green Willow tribe reached out and patted Stonebrave's shoulder. Why are you in a daze? Whether or not there are long-lived species, what does that have to do with us? Stonebrave let out a deep breath. He slowly said, I just think that this world is a bit too unfair. It's fine. Let's go. It won't be good to keep our honored guests waiting. They enjoyed the breakfast that Divine Stone Tribe had carefully prepared. Compared to the cooking skills of the Root Man, it could only be considered ordinary. Chinyu wiped the corners of his mouth and glanced at Little Meaty. Seeing that she didn't say anything, he smiled and said, You've seen Fata Morgana and also eaten breakfast. Let's get down to business as soon as possible. The old patriarch said in a low voice, The matter isn't urgent. Lord Marquis can rest for another night. It won't be too late to restore your spirit. Chinyu's lips twitched. He looked at the old man and thought to himself, Old mister, your courage is truly great. Little Meaty glanced at him. Chinyu felt his heart skip a beat. He quickly waved his hand and said, It's fine. This marquee is in very good condition. There is no need to wait any longer. Let's do it today. Little Meaty's words were the final word. Chapter 16:23. After making the decision, Shurgan was the first to get up and leave. He said that he had to gather the clan elders to complete some instructions and arrangements. He left in a hurry. After the news spread, the tribe's elders quickly gathered together. Today, the desolate Marquis Zhongwu will help my clan's divine totem stone complete its transformation. Shurgan went straight to the point. His eyes swept over everyone. There is no need for this old man to explain the significance of this matter to my stone god tribe. He stood up, passed down my order, mobilized the tribe's soldiers, and set up a defensive formation. Before the totem evolves, no one is allowed to enter or leave. Pass down my orders. All elders are to carry out their own duties and pacify the tribe. As the totem godstone evolves, there may be some movements. Without my orders, no one is allowed to approach the forbidden land. Pass down my order. From now on, all clansmen are not to act on their own. Orders were executed at the fastest speed. The huge stone god division was like a precise machine, quickly operating at high speed. Everyone could understand the patriarch's cautiousness. The totem godstone had been stuck at the threshold of advancement for more than 200 years. Once it succeeded, it meant that the overall strength of the stone god tribe would skyrocket. This concerned the future of the tribe, so they couldn't afford to be careless. Little Meaty's mood wasn't right. Others couldn't sense it, but Yu could faintly sense it. He chased away the Green Willow tribe's old chief with the excuse of calming himself down and adjusting his condition. He looked at Little Meat and asked, "Is Divine Dragon City related to you?" Little Rogue glanced at him. "You're really smart. You can even guess such a secret." He admitted it. Yu's heart shook. He thought back to what he had heard before. That true dragon of this world. He really didn't mean it, but he couldn't help but think that this true dragon could have been eaten by Meaty. Humph! What nonsense are you thinking about? Little Meaty rolled her eyes. "I don't want to talk about this, so don't ask." Well, with just a few words, all the words that Yu was about to say were blocked back down. Now, he could somewhat understand Little Meaty's personality. If she wasn't willing to say something, it would be useless even if he broke the casserole. After thinking for a moment, Yu said, "Then why did you choose today?" Little Meaty was expressionless. "You chose it." Yu, he had to admit that it was indeed the case. But why did I feel like I was about to choke and couldn't breathe? However, one thing was certain. Little Meaty was not in a good mood. Yu turned and sat to the side, no longer looking for trouble. But the truth was that he didn't relax at all. An hour later, Shurgon personally arrived. He respectfully bowed. "Marquis, Madam, my troops have finished their preparations. Please follow me." The old chief of the Green Willow tribe was not here, which was reasonable. It was related to the promotion of the totem of the Stone God tribe, so it was inappropriate for an outsider to be present. After all, they were close, but it didn't mean that they didn't need to avoid arousing suspicion. The encampment of the Rock God tribe was almost cleared out. Only the old tribe leader was leading the way. Looking around, there was no one else. Noticing Yu's gaze, Stone Bold explained, "My tribe's totem godstones, because of their own attributes as well as their cultivation needs, have already fused into the earth veins beneath our feet. Once it starts to advance, it will definitely cause a scene similar to an earth dragon turning over. Thus, this old man ordered my clansmen not to go out to avoid unnecessary losses." Yu nodded. "Patriarch Shur is thoughtful." Shurgon smiled. He waved his hand. "I will have to ask Marquis for everything today. Once my tribe's totem smoothly advances, the Stone God tribe will surely reward you." Soon, the group of 3 arrived at the mountain where they had watched the mirage in the early morning. Shurgon pointed a finger. "My tribe's totem godstones are cultivating at the base of the mountain. Marquis, Madam, please follow me." After a moment of hesitation, he revealed a bit of awe. "Marquis, Madam, perhaps you heard some things about me from that old block of wood." Cough, cough. "Rumors aren't completely baseless. There are some arrangements inside. I ask that you two follow me to avoid any accidents." They passed through an illusory array, a trap array, and a bewildering array. After a great deal of time, the 3 of them arrived at a crack in the ground at the base of the mountain. It wasn't large. The part that was exposed outside wasn't even as tall as an adult. They had to bend down to enter. Shurgon coughed. "This is the passage to the base of the mountain." Yu glanced at the old patriarch who was leading the way. He thought that this old patriarch's cautious personality was indeed exaggerated. There was another world within the cave. The entrance was extremely small and narrow. If one didn't personally enter, Who would have thought that there would be such an incomparably massive space hidden within a mountain, one that seemed like an underground world? All sorts of crystals emitted light. It was similar to the mirage that everyone saw this morning. It was incomparably quiet. All that could be heard was the footsteps of the three people. Shurgan constantly reminded them in a low voice to avoid triggering any mechanisms. The three of them smoothly advanced. After an hour, they finally saw the totem god stone. Marquis, Madam, today is my tribe's totem god stone's monthly breathing period. I ask that you wait a moment. I will go up first to awaken the divine stone. Shurgan bowed. He walked to the side of the totem god stone, but didn't stop. Instead, he took a step forwards. Then, like a shadow, he fused into the divine stone and vanished from sight. Qin Yu's complexion changed. In the next moment, he was grabbed by Little Meaty and pulled behind him. The totem god stone trembled. A halo of yellow earth light was released from it, sweeping through the entire cave and covering everything within. On the ground, countless stones began to tremble. Then they came to life, jumping up and fusing together, turning into ugly stone monsters. These stone monsters didn't attack. Instead, they gathered around the divine stone, wrapping it up in layers. Little Meaty stepped forwards. The yellow earth halo in front of her instantly broke apart, forming an empty space that was 10 feet wide. She looked up at the divine stone, her eyes icy cold. I guess that there was a problem with you. But with just you alone, you dare to attack me? Of course he wouldn't dare. Another voice sounded out from thin air. You are extremely mysterious, and your strength is unfathomably deep. Today, you have acted unscrupulously. I have been disrespectful. Little Meaty coldly sneered. Hiding your head and showing your tail in front of me. Are you sure you won't die? She lifted a hand and pointed out a finger. With a puff, space shattered and a black hole appeared. A pain cough came from the black hole. Then there was a roar of anger. Attack! Kill him, and you will obtain your freedom. Schwa, schwa, schwa. Figure after figure appeared out of thin air. All of them were hidden beneath black robes, revealing only a pair of eyes that were icy cold and wooden. Without any hesitation, these people attacked at the same time toward Qin Yu. That's right, all of their attacks avoided Little Meaty. Their goal was clear. They wanted Qin Yu to die here. All sorts of supernatural powers blotted out the skies. The weakest amongst them were at the ruler level, and 2 of them were high-level ruler powerhouses. They were stronger than the assassin that had tried to kill Qin Yu outside the commander's tent. Although Qin Yu had severely wounded that assassin, that was only one person. And now, there were at least 10 people in front of him. Quantitative change would eventually lead to qualitative change. If 10 rulers joined forces, it wouldn't be difficult to kill an extreme ruler. Qin Yu's complexion paled. He thought that something was wrong. Little Meaty had clearly sensed that something was wrong ahead of time. So why were these people targeting him? But it was clear that no one would give him an explanation. At this time, the gauze that had been covering Little Meaty's eyes suddenly vanished from sight. With a single glance, she was able to see everything that had happened. It seems like not eating you directly was a mistake. Little Meaty muttered to herself without hesitation. She flicked her sleeves, and great waves appeared in the void, shattering all of the incoming attacks. The assassins that had appeared out of nowhere were like large fish in the sea. They were forced back. She hadn't killed anyone. It wasn't that she couldn't, but that she couldn't. The other party had already discovered her flaw. Her best choice now was to leave this place. But since they dared to let Little Meaty see what had happened today, it would likely be difficult for her to escape. She had to try. Little Meaty stomped her feet. The entire cave violently shook and a wild strength rumbled into the earth. Bang, bang, bang. The stone golems that surrounded the totem divine stone suddenly shattered in great numbers, exploding into powder. Kacha! A crack appeared on the surface of the divine stone. Stonebold's face appeared, a pained expression on his face. But soon, an earthen yellow light surged and the crack disappeared. The shattered stone golems condensed once more, filling in the empty space. Little Meaty's eyes fell on the divine stone. Stonebold's face twisted, and he screamed in pain. He closed his eyes, but blood still gushed out from them. And at this time, the assassins that had been forced back had already rushed forwards once more. Little Meaty stomped her feet again. The cave shook once more, and the assassins that rushed forwards were sent flying away once more. This time, their injuries were lighter. In fact, it could be said that they weren't injured at all. They were wrapped up in a gentle strength. If I don't kill anyone, what can you do? She looked up at the totem divine stone. I want to see just how long you can last. Bang! Another heavy stomp landed. The stone golems were shattered and cracks appeared on the totem divine stone. Stonebold roared out in anger. Hurry up and attack. He discovered that he had underestimated the strength of this Marquis Zhongwu's madam. If things continued like this, at most 3 or 5 stomps would be enough to forcefully shatter the imprisonment that he had laid down using the entire earth vein as the price. At that time, he would certainly die a cold death. Suddenly, the eyes of the black-robed assassins turned blood red, and a wild aura broke out from their bodies. They roared out in alarm and anger, mixed with pain. But soon, all that was left over was brutality and destruction. There wasn't the slightest bit of sobriety left in them. With loud howls, they wildly rushed forwards. Their crimson eyes widened as they stubbornly stared at Chinyu. Little Meaty's eyes turned even colder. She reached out a hand and pulled Chinyu into her bosom. In the next moment, terrifying explosions rang out like billowing thunderclaps. Chinyu didn't have time to enjoy the warm and fragrant taste of jade. He only felt dizzy and his chest tumbled in his chest. 14 ruler-level powerhouses had all blown themselves up and died. Little Meaty's face paled, but she didn't move. Instead, her expression became increasingly indifferent. What does exploding themselves to death have to do with me? A light sigh sounded out in his ears. A black-robed woman appeared in the aftershocks of the explosion. Whether it has something to do with you or not, I fear that whatever you say doesn't count. Chapter 16:24. Rumble, rumble. With a stone god tribe was thunder roared from the highest heavens. In the blink of an eye, countless clouds surged out, thick and low, as if they would touch that forbidden mountain. The complexions of the stone god tribe elders that were guarding outside changed. They could feel a ruthless and destructive aura. Could it be that an accident occurred when the divine stone was breaking through its bottleneck? The Green Willow tribe patriarch's figure flashed, and he appeared on the roof of a small stone courtyard. He looked at the place where the thunderclouds had fallen, his eyebrows furrowed and his face heavy. Something wasn't right. At this time, the terrifying suppression falling down from the heavens was even more terrifying than the backlash of the world when the totem divine Willow failed to break through. Just what was going on? With hesitation in his eyes, the Green Willow tribe patriarch took a deep breath. He took a step forward and howled out. He didn't hide his whereabouts, and soon 2 stone god tribe elders welcomed him. Patriarch Wood, when my tribe's totem is breaking through, please don't casually walk around. One of the elders said. On the side, Sher Sin bitterly smiled. He thought that these newly promoted elders were a bit too insensible. He glared at him and hurriedly explained, Patriarch Wood, please don't be angry. He was just worried and lost his sense of propriety. The old patriarch said, I won't bother with him. But now, the totem divine stone is breaking through. It is clear that some accident has occurred. Do you still want to continue waiting? Sure, Sin cupped his hands together. The patriarch just sent out a message. Although there have been some accidents, the overall situation is still under control. He wants us to be on guard against anyone scheming against us and not act without orders. Although his words were respectful, there was also a hint of warning. After all, in the Stone God tribe, the Green Willow tribe patriarch was still an outsider. The old patriarch's complexion darkened. He humphed and turned to leave. Not only did he not feel relieved after hearing Shursan's words, but an even greater sense of worry and unease rose in his heart. With the old monkey's cautious personality, there was something wrong with it for it to remain so calm after causing such a great commotion and not do anything else. Something had happened. Something had definitely happened. The old patriarch was deeply worried. But right now, besides waiting outside with wide eyes, there was nothing he could do. The red negative karma flames that were as thin as flying threads surged out of her flesh and enveloped her figure. At this time, the terrifying thunder tribulation that descended from the outside world had nothing to do with the totem god stone. Instead, it had locked onto her. As someone who should not exist in this world, he had already committed a great taboo by descending into this world. It was only because the flesh had completed its self-seal and minimized its interference with the outside world. That was why it was reluctantly allowed to continue staying. However, today's slaughter had resulted in the deaths of more than 10 Sovereign Realm experts. This terrible debt of taking lives was placed on the flesh. Just as the black-robed woman had said earlier, the flesh's words did not count. Only the world itself could make a judgment. It was clear that its patience had reached its limit. It tacitly decided to use some methods that weren't exactly honorable to expel the flesh. The reason for that was because her existence was a hidden danger to the world. The reason why he didn't directly kill her was because she couldn't be killed at all. She was a truly perfect and flawless type of long life. The flesh pushed Qin Yu away, not allowing him to be contaminated by the blood flames of karma. Her eyes fell onto the black robes, cold and indifferent. Is there any use in wearing a robe in front of me? After a moment of silence, the black robes dissipated like smoke, revealing Li Ruhua's figure. The third-generation disciple of the central desolate divine, continent bowed from afar. Your supernatural abilities are incredible. Since I have appeared, I have no intention of continuing to hide. She stood up, her expression solemn. I only came to make things clear to you. Everything I do today has karma. You stole half of my destiny and gave it to the loyal martial Marquis Ning Qin. This is the same as severing my great Tao. Li Ruhua naturally has to take it back. Her eyes swept over Qin Yu. They were cold to the extreme, without the slightest hint of emotion. If one had to say something, it would be an unforgettable hatred and a cold, killing intent. This gaze left Qin Yu somewhat baffled. It was your Li family that took the initiative to scheme against me. No matter how you looked at it, I was the victim. As for stealing half of her destiny, Qin Yu felt that was simply nonsense. How could he not know what happened to him? But this time, Qin Yu stiffened. He suddenly thought of the memories that had disappeared in the realm of grandeur and yellow millet. Could it be that it had something to do with Li Ruhua? Her gaze right now was just too frightening, as if she had done that to her again and again. As if sensing the meaning in Qin Yu's eyes, Li Ruhua's chest rapidly heaved several times, and her eyes turned even colder. You bastard, you bastard. Why are you pretending to be innocent here? You really should be torn to shreds. Misty coldly sneered. This time, you were far too shameless. Through that little fellow, you told them many things. You even made preparations ahead of time to settle karma. But do you think this will be useful? Or do you really not fear death? Although the words used were the same, they were referring to different things. Li Ruhua paled. To die now, or to wait for death in the future, there is no difference. I would rather give it my all. The mortal body's eyes were ice cold, and her lips curved up in a sneer. Although her eyes didn't change, her temperament was like an empress looking down on the world with disdain. Then, I will help you. Bang, Misty punched out. Li Ruhua's complexion changed. But before she could respond, she was like a ripe fruit that exploded in the air. Blood splashed out, and pieces of flesh and bone flew into the air. Blood karmic flames gushed out from within Misty's body. Her strength instantly rose to a level that was even greater than when she had killed over a dozen ruler powerhouses. She really is a reincarnated body. It seems her achievements in her past life were quite high. Rumble, rumble. Even deep underground, one could still hear the roars of thunder in the skies, filled with anger and depression. It seemed that Misty's unhesitant punch to kill Li Ruhua had thoroughly enraged the world. Beneath the blood karmic flames, Midi's complexion paled, but her eyes were bright. She looked up, seeming to pierce through all obstacles and stare into the skies. "What are you shouting for? Do you think the louder you are, the more reasonable you are? If you have the ability, then act like a man and attack." Bang! A terrifying pillar of thunder instantly fell down from the clouds, faster than lightning. In the blink of an eye, it smashed into the stone god tribe's forbidden mountain. From within the totem god stone, pained screams echoed out. Countless cracks appeared, covering every inch and corner of it. The ugly stone monsters surrounding the god stone were instantly smashed into pieces by the lightning. But what they withstood was only the aftermath of the thunder. Nearly all of its strength had crashed into Midi's body. Within the dark red blood karmic flames, countless bolts of thunder leapt about. Crackling sounds constantly rang out, each one representing an extremely terrifying destructive strength. Midi's complexion paled even further. Her lips curved up in a smile. "So many years have passed, and you still haven't made any progress. You really don't have enough brains, brother." She flicked her sleeves and grabbed on a Chinyu. Then she shot into the skies. Heavenly thunder rumbled through the channel as she rushed out of the forbidden mountain. At this moment, the Green Willow tribe patriarch's eyes widened. Although he was far away, his eyesight as a cultivator allowed him to clearly see that the people that rushed out of the pillar of thunder were Marquis Zhongwu and his wife. Just what had happened? Why was it like this? Stonebold's resentful and angry roars echoed out from deep underground. "The Forsaken have plotted to harm my tribe's totem, and their plot has been exposed. All members of the Stone God tribe, heed my orders. Kill them at all costs." The old patriarch's eyes widened. He could feel his ears ring and his mind go blank. The elders of the Stone God tribe were dazed for a moment before a cold light gushed out from their eyes. They didn't doubt the patriarch's words at all. Of course, what was more important was that all of them could clearly feel the anger and weakness of the totem god stone. It even gave them a feeling that they were on the edge of death, a feeling that they could fall into a great fear at any moment. "Kill the Forsaken." With a roar, the first stone god tribe elder shot into the skies. His body was covered in crimson blood flames, and he was wrapped in layers of lightning. His aura was like the flesh of a demon god, but his eyes were calm. She didn't do anything. She just looked down at Elder Stone God, who was rushing over with a face full of resentment. With a bang, he exploded into pieces on the spot, turning into a crimson blood mist. Then, he was devoured by little Midi. She licked the corners of her lips and muttered, "It's really been a long time since I've enjoyed the pleasure of recklessly slaughtering people." Deep within Midi's eyes, traces of blood red appeared. It wasn't thick, but at this moment, Chinyu felt as if he were facing two boundless seas of blood. He took a deep breath and said, "Midi, don't be controlled by your instincts. The more you kill, the greater the trouble will be." Midi turned her head and glanced at Chinyu. "I know, but it's already too late." Bang, bang. Two more stone god tribe elders that shot into the skies exploded in the air. Blood fog approached Midi and fused into her body. It was like she was an endless black hole that swallowed up blood. Rumble, rumble. Above her head, the thick clouds became increasingly dark, as if yin and yang of day and night had been reversed. The entire world was covered in pitch-black darkness. With a loud explosion, endless lightning surged, covering every inch of the clouds. An even more terrifying pillar of lightning crashed down towards Midi. She lifted a hand and grasped downwards. A massive blank appeared in the battle formation of the Stone God tribe. All of the Goliath warriors and mounts within range were turned to powder. In the next moment, a giant bead of blood appeared in her hand. As Midi sneered, it rapidly stretched out, turning into a giant blood umbrella. She held the umbrella in her hand. No matter how the endless thunder struck down, it couldn't take a single step forwards or touch her body. "Midi," Chinyu roared. In the end, he was the Goliath sovereign. Midi had no expression. A blood-red light swirled in the depths of her eyes. If they don't die, you will die. Qin Yu's heart violently shrank. Midi's hand held up the blood umbrella, withstanding the violent bombardment of heavenly thunder. As it trembled, it constantly evaporated, causing massive amounts of blood fog to rise up. The blood umbrella itself also became increasingly dim and thin. Without waiting for it to shatter, Midi's hand grasped the earth once more. Rumble, rumble. Countless stone god tribe warriors instantly died. After the bead of blood fused into the blood umbrella, it instantly restored to its original state. Midi looked up at the clouds above. She muttered, "No matter how long you want to play, I will accompany you to the end. But he is my bottom line. Don't take an inch and take a foot. Otherwise, you should be well aware of just what sort of strength a long-lived being can erupt with after their great Tao is severed." Chapter 16:25. The tumbling thunderclouds paused for a moment. Midi's lips curved up in a smile. That's right. That's how it is. We all need to know our limits in order to live a better life. Bang! As if enraged by her provocation and warning, a third pillar of thunder came crashing down. Midi reached out her hand once more. She grabbed the lives of tens of thousands of barbarian warriors and condensed them into beads of blood that fused into the blood umbrella. The corners of her mouth were still smiling, and it was even more brilliant than before. The endless negative karma flames had already enveloped her completely, and only a very soft voice slowly came from within. "It seems like you don't believe what I said just now." "Kacha!" A light sound came from within Midi's body. At this moment, her aura was instantly restrained. She was like a stone, a wooden stake, without the slightest fluctuation. But at this moment, everyone could clearly feel the despairing and ruthless suppression of destruction that came from her. It was enough to destroy all. Even the world itself was included. The thunderclouds above fell silent. In the next moment, they rapidly dissipated. In just several breaths of time, they vanished from sight. A great sun appeared. It sprinkled down warm light that shined on the bodies of the stone god tribe, making them feel as if they had been separated from the world for a lifetime. If it weren't for the blood karma flames still burning above their heads and the arcs of thunder that hadn't completely dissipated, one would have suspected that everything just now was just an illusion. But in the end, it wasn't. The entire stone god tribe had withstood the shockwaves and was nearly completely destroyed. Less than 20% of the tribal warriors that formed the battle formation remained. As for the others, they were turned to powder by Midi's 3 grabs. Their bodies and souls were destroyed, forever vanishing from the world. As for the ordinary tribesmen, the number of casualties was over 10 times, or even more. Were they in the wrong? Not necessarily. Perhaps even in death, they wouldn't know what had happened. But the stone god tribe's patriarch Stoneforge had already chosen death for them. This was probably the sorrow of the weak. They couldn't decide their own birth, and even their own death was controlled by others. Shwa. Midi turned and walked away. With a single step, she vanished from sight. The Green Willow tribe patriarch's face was deathly pale. He stood in the mess, his body tottering. She disappeared and reappeared. Midi was already far away from the stone god tribe. It was unknown what she had done, but the blood karma flames around her were forcefully suppressed. Qin Yu looked at the deathly pale face in front of him. As he thought about how many barbarians had died in stone god tribe today, his complexion became extremely complex. Ro sneered. "Although the name of the barbarian emperor is not bad, but don't take it too seriously. Let alone killing tens of thousands of people. So what if he killed millions of people? Only when you are alive will everything have meaning. Remember this in the future. Don't look for trouble for yourself." Qin took a deep breath. "Let's not talk about this. How are you right now?" "I'm fine. Speak the truth." Little Midi was silent for a moment, then said indifferently, "I'm leaving." Qin frowned. "That's it," Midi said. "For the next period of time, I will fall into a deep sleep, and will not be able to continue descending. Fortunately, the debt between us has already been settled. Otherwise, I would have suffered a great loss if I couldn't collect the debt. I would have been so upset that I wouldn't have been able to sleep. Chinyu took a deep breath. How long? Little Meaty glanced at him. Before she could speak, Chinyu interrupted her. I want the truth. Pursing her lips, she slowly said, It might take a long time, but I won't die. I'll definitely be able to come back. So, Chinyu, you must try your best to live on. You must live for a very, very long time. Don't wait for me to come out and find that you have already died without even a soul fragment to be found. Chinyu frowned. If that was the case, then it really would be a very long time. It was so long that they might never see each other again. Looking at Meaty opposite him, for some reason, a trace of sorrow suddenly gushed out from the depths of his heart. Chinyu tried his best to suppress it, but his eyes still turned slightly red. He took a deep breath and turned sideways. How can I help you? Little Meat sighed and said in a gentle tone, It's useless. Didn't I say before that your cultivation is still too weak? Perhaps it was because he felt that it was not good for him to say such harsh words when they were about to part ways. So he smiled and said, Cultivate well. When the day comes that you can punch a hole in that big net, you will have the ability to save me. Chinyu remained silent. Little Meat waved her hand. That's enough. I really don't have much time left. There are some important matters that I need to quickly explain to you. The first matter is in Nank and Golden Millet. I left something for you. When you truly fall into a hopeless situation and have no choice but to die, you don't need to despair. You need to believe that there's a reason behind the phrase, escaping death in a hopeless situation. The second matter is that the Lord Ruler beside you is not ordinary. Really, this is already the highest level of evaluation I can give him. Besides that, there is one more thing. There might be some connection between me and this Lord Ruler. I can't say for sure, and I'm not too sure myself. In short, you need to pay more attention to her. If she really is an existence similar to me, she might not have my patience. The third matter is that you must carry the treasure that I forged for you in the imperial capital with you. That way, even if you were to truly reincarnate, I would still be able to find you. Perhaps, I might even be able to help you regain your memories of this life. Finally, let me satisfy your curiosity. I am indeed familiar with Divine Dragon City, because that is the only true dragon in the world. Strictly speaking, he can be considered a pet that I raise. Little Meat's smile was brilliant. She waved her hand, and the traces of suppressed blood flames drilled out once more. I have to go. Goodbye, Chinyu. Hold on, Chinyu suddenly said. He stared at Little Meat in front of him. Hold on a little longer. Before I wake up, don't leave. Little Meat furrowed her eyebrows. There's no point in saying that. Chinyu had already closed his eyes. In the distance, within a half-abandoned crack in the world, the slumbering Lord Ruler's long eyelashes gently trembled. He slowly opened his eyes. At this moment, there seemed to be countless stars and clouds swirling within. It was too beautiful to behold. After a brief daze, she suddenly lifted her hands and clutched her head. Chinyu, little Chinyu, are you poisoned? Why do you always have to come and disturb my sweet dreams? As she spoke, she clenched her teeth. She wished she could reach out and grab that stinky brat and beat him up. The Lord Ruler struggled to get up. He rubbed his eyebrows. Even I think this matter is tricky. Why do you care? She won't die. At most, she will sleep for a period of time. She will eventually come out. If you interfere and aren't careful, you might really die. She lifted a hand and tapped her forehead, her face full of anger. You can't even understand this? I think you brat. You've forgotten your life in the face of love. Do you really want to die? The Lord Ruler lay down on his back. I don't care, I don't care. I don't care about this. Do whatever you want. She closed her eyes and covered her ears, but she couldn't block it at all. With a scream, she jumped up and put her hands on her hips as she cursed. You bastard, I'm warning you. Don't go too far. After all, I am you. If you really annoy me, I'll settle this debt with you. She flicked her sleeves and sealed off this half-abandoned crack in the world, cutting off all perception. Humph humph. If you want to save someone, look at yourself first. Unless that person beside you takes action, no one will succeed. Chinyu opened his eyes. Misty in front of him had already been wrapped up in the blood flames of karma. She had retreated far away, the world around her fiercely twisting. She could clearly feel that this twisted world was releasing a formidable, repulsive strength that wanted to force her out of this world. I have a way to help you. Trust me. Take me with you. Chinyu roared out loud. In the blood flames, Misty rubbed her temples. Don't make a fuss. You can't go to my home. External objects cannot enter or leave, but souls are an exception. As long as you are willing, you can take me in. Misty frowned. Chinyu, have you thought it through? If we go there, we will die without a doubt. Chinyu shook his head. I won't die, and neither will you. He stepped forwards. After a long slumber, you will indeed wake up and descend upon this world once more. But at that time, you might not remember me. Before, you said that you wanted me to take the treasure refined from the startling cicada's wings and the shedding of a jellyfish. You wanted to find me after you forgot, right? In the blood flames, Misty's eyes widened. Chinyu smiled. Are you surprised? You see, I even know these secrets, so I definitely wasn't speaking nonsense. You don't have time. If you stay here any longer, you will suffer even greater injuries. Take me home with you, and I will definitely be able to bring you back. Misty mumbled, I'm not forcing you. This is something you are willing to do. She lifted a hand and grasped forwards. Chinyu's soul instantly left his body. Before he could feel anything, his field of vision fell into darkness. In the next moment, the blood flames vanished. Misty and Chinyu fell to the ground, both of them unconscious. A moment later, the cry of a sword came from afar. With a swoosh, Baiji fell in front of the two. She hurried over to Misty's side. She knelt down on the ground and held her in her arms. After sensing for a moment, her complexion turned icy cold, and her eyes erupted with icy killing intent. Although I don't really like this loyal Marquis, who only knows how to eat his meals, I advise you not to do anything. If he dies, I will definitely die as well. At some unknown time, the sword-bearing youth called Dog Leftover had appeared at her side. His face was pale white, and he looked as if he only had half a breath left. Baiji looked up. The only thing that was revealed was a cold chill. You want to stop me? Dog Leftover coughed several times. He wiped away the blood that had spilled out and earnestly said, No, I just want to live. He felt dizzy, as if there were several large stones in his head. It was so heavy that he couldn't open his eyes, and his consciousness was hazy and unclear. Faintly, he could hear a voice outside, as if someone was shouting a name. It was a woman. Who was she calling? Was it me? But who was he? Where was he? He wanted to wake up, but his head felt heavy and there was nothing he could do. After struggling for a bit, he used up the last bit of his energy and fell into a deep sleep once more. The voice in his ears faded away. The Green Willow tribe patriarch looked at the pale-faced Stone Hollow, who seemed to have aged several hundred years in a single day. He slowly said, Tell me, just what happened? Stone Hollow was expressionless. Desolate Marquis, loyal Marshal secretly harmed my tribe's totem god Stone. Just as he was about to speak, he was interrupted. The old patriarch slammed the table. Old monkey, you can deceive others with these words, but you can't deceive me. He leaned forward, his eyes stubbornly staring at Stone Hollow. If you don't have any ulterior motives, then look into my eyes and repeat what you just said. Stone Hollow lowered his head and drank some tea. Even if I say it 10,000 times, it will still be the same words. The old patriarch took a deep breath. You should know that Marquis Loyal Marshal is the savior of my Green Willow tribe. My tribe owes him countless lives. As for the reason why he chose the Stone God division and appeared here, a large part of it was because of me. Stone Hollow said, What do you want to say? The old patriarch turned and walked away. From today onwards, we are no longer friends. Stone Hollow didn't urge him to stay. He allowed him to walk out of the small stone courtyard and soar into the sky, leaving the Stone God Tribe station. Pa! The teacup smashed into the ground, smashing into pieces and steaming hot air. Stone Hollow lowered his head. hiding his twisted old face in the shadows. "Old friend, I just don't want to accept this. I just want to live. Is that wrong? The heavens are too unfair." A low roar came from his mouth and nose, echoing in the small courtyard. Chapter 16:26. Dark red flames blazed in the air like blood. A woman's body was rapidly condensing in the flames. When her flesh and blood were full and her long hair fell down, she opened her eyes and fell to the ground with a loud thud. She gasped for breath in great gulps. Her full chest was now exposed, drawing an exaggerated arc in the air. Her white skin was astonishing. But what a pity, the one enjoying this beautiful scene was only an 11 to 12-year-old youth. He wore snow-white robes and was incomparably handsome, like a banished immortal. Now that he heard the woman's movements, he only turned his head. After casually sizing her up, he curled his lips and turned his head away. "Hey, I'm just a 10-some-year-old youth right now. Don't you think this sort of seduction method is a bit too advanced? Hurry up and find some clothes to wear. Although I'm fine, I scared the surrounding plants and flowers. That can be considered a sin." After the woman fell to the ground, her breathing slowed down a little. She lifted a hand and a red dress appeared, covering her naked body. She walked over and respectfully bowed. "Thank you for helping me resurrect." The white-robed youth smiled. "There is no need to thank me. This is our agreement, and I have always been a man of my word." He stood up and dusted off his buttocks. His white clothes were still clean. "You're alive, so our deal is over. Goodbye." "Hold on." The red-dressed woman bit her lips. "Half of my destiny hasn't been restored yet. Marquis Zhongwu Ningqin is still alive." The white-robed youth shrugged. "That isn't my problem. After all, our agreement didn't cover this. I'm leaving. Don't call me again. Even if you do, I won't respond to you." Schwa. Space flashed, and the white-robed youth vanished from sight. The red-dressed woman frowned, and a cold light appeared in her eyes. She looked down at her palm and saw that the red spots had dimmed. Her complexion turned even uglier. Suddenly, the red-dressed woman covered her chest with a pained expression. She clenched her teeth and left. The white-robed youth called Qin Yu hadn't gone far. His figure disappeared and reappeared several times before he arrived at a half-exposed cave. Although he did not enter and was separated by a thick layer of stone, this distance was enough for him to see everything. "Main body, you're really brave. You actually dared to follow that person home. Doesn't that mean you'll never be able to come back?" Thinking to this point, young Qin Yu smiles from ear to ear. He only feels that his heart is at ease. Everything in the world is good. Birds are singing and flowers are fragrant everywhere. He had been given his real name, and it was a very particular name like Qin Yu. It was impossible for him to do anything to Qin Yu. Even though his main body was currently in a soulless state, Qin Yu could only watch from afar. He did not dare to approach at all, lest he come into contact with some unknown karma. Previously, Li Ruhua's problem could actually be easily solved. However, after thinking about it, Qin Yu decided not to tell her about it. His main body was currently enjoying the flow of time. A day in the heavens was equivalent to a year below. If he were to leave the nourishment of his mortal body, his soul would soon wither away and he would naturally die. To him, this was the safest and most advantageous method. He didn't have to worry about anything going wrong. Smiling, the young Qin Yu turned around and left. He would let his main body slowly wait for death. He wanted to take a serious look at this great mountain river world. Schwa. He disappeared in a flash. In the Western Wasteland Imperial Palace, His Majesty, who always hid his emotions, was truly enraged for the first time. His angry roars resounded through the entire Longevity Temple. The eunuchs outside bowed their heads, afraid that if they breathed too much, they would incur His Majesty's wrath. But within the imperial capital, everything was clearly stable. His Majesty, who had obtained 100 years, had nearly restored his peak ruling strength. No one dared to challenge His Majesty's status and dignity. The four borders were also stable. There were no urgent military reports. His Majesty, why was he angry? Was he angry? Soon, the sky-bearing monarch was summoned and hurried into the Longevity Temple. It was unknown what he said to his majesty, but when he left the Longevity Temple, his complexion was ashen. Without any delay, the sky-bearing monarch brought the two exalted lords and left the imperial capital at the fastest speed possible. Like this, they vanished without a trace. No one knew where the sky-bearing monarch went. Of course, if one carefully investigated with the various powerhouses of the empire, they would definitely be able to find some clues. But at this time, no one was willing to provoke him. His Majesty, who was already on the verge of erupting in anger, chose to ignore them. Ye family. The old man's complexion was heavy. A black jade chess piece in his hand shattered into pieces. On the other side, the military advisor, who had lost half his body and had become a cripple, frowned and asked, "What happened?" It had been many years since he had seen his commander lose his composure like this. The old man took a deep breath and slowly said, "Marquis Loyal Marshal Ning Qin has gone missing. It's unknown whether he's alive or dead." The military advisor's frown deepened. His eyes were sharp. His Majesty sent out 4 old claws. So how could someone succeed? It's within the borders of the barbarians. The old man lifted his hand and rubbed his temples. At this time, his old face had already returned to tranquility. When a person lived for a long time and experienced enough wind and rain, they would naturally develop a valiant mind and shrewdness. The military advisor let out a long breath. It's time to pull back. If Marquis Loyal Marshal really dies, the Yi family won't fall. You taking the initiative to pull back is different from His Majesty reminding you afterwards. The old man nodded. You're right. Then let's slow down and take a look. He loosened his hand, allowing the chess pieces to scatter to the ground. His eyes were ice cold. In the end, I still underestimated Yi Bohu. His head was still dizzy, but it was much better than before. After an unknown amount of effort, he could finally see a blurry light in front of him. He was going to wake up. He was going to wake up. His heart stirred with excitement. Then, the voice in his ears became clear. Qinyu, if you don't wake up, you really will die. Chua. His eyes flew open, but he couldn't bear the light in front of him, so he closed them again in the next moment. Qinyu? Is he calling me? I am Qinyu. Ah. He let out a pained roar as he clutched his head tightly with both hands. It was as if millions of years of memories had settled down in his mind like a raging flood. Come to think of it, I remember everything. Qinyu slowly opened his eyes. Resisting the blinding light in front of him, he was finally able to see the person in front of him. Little, he tried to speak, but there was a burning pain in his throat. It was like he had been thirsty for countless years and had completely rusted together. Little raised a finger, acting as a torch. This was because the flames that Qinyu saw were coming from her fingertips. You're awake? You're really awake? She stretched out her other hand and stretched out 2 fingers. Carefully count. How many is this? Qinyu was so angry he nearly laughed. He weakly said, 2. Little smiled. Then you're really awake. Qinyu, you really can sleep. I thought you were going to fall asleep like this. Qinyu's complexion changed. How long did I sleep for? Little fell silent. The restlessness in Qinyu's heart became increasingly heavy. He ignored the discomfort of his body and took a deep breath. He squeezed out a smile and said, It's fine, I can withstand it. Just tell me the truth. How long did I sleep for? Little Meaty revealed a look of guilt. I'm sorry, Qinyu. There was an accident in the past, and I wasn't able to smoothly bring you home. And by the time I found you, many years had already passed. In order for you to truly wake up and restore your memories, it took many more years. So, if you ask me just how long I slept for, I have no way of answering you. His field of vision darkened, and he nearly fainted. There was only one thought in his mind. It was over, it was all over. According to Little Meaty, how many years had passed? No, I'm afraid it's possible to add 10,000 words to it. Thinking of this, Qinyu's mind blanked out. Everything was fine, but when he closed his eyes and opened them again, all the people he knew had withered away and disappeared. Regardless of whether it was relatives or enemies, they had all become fleeting clouds. How would it feel? It was not an exaggeration to say that he was completely disheartened. Papa, Chinyu, you're too funny. You even believe this. He laughed so hard that he rocked back and forth. I'm lying. I'm lying to you. You've been sleeping here for around 4 days. It's true. Don't look at me with such strange eyes. I swear on this ball of light on my finger that what I'm saying right now is the truth. Who? Chinyu let out a long, long breath. He lifted his hand with difficulty and pointed at little Meaty, his lips trembling even more fiercely. Scaring people to death. Just you wait for me. Little Meaty arched an eyebrow. Oh, young Master Chin, you've learned to hold a grudge against me? Could it be that you don't remember where you are right now? Humph humph. Let me tell you, this is my home. If I don't let you leave, then you can only obediently stay here and accompany me until the end of time. Do you understand? Chin Yu's intuition told him that little Meaty wasn't lying. If she wanted to, she really could keep him here forever. As they said, a wise man didn't fight when the odds were against him. Chin Yu lightly coughed and tried to move his body. He felt much better and slowly sat up. I was anxious for a moment. Miss Meaty is magnanimous and magnanimous. Please don't lower yourself to my level. Little Meaty coldly sneered. She yawned and turned to sit down. Speak. How do you want to save me? Let me tell you, after I came back, I should have gone to sleep. I've been waiting for you all this time, and I'm feeling very uncomfortable. Hurry up and explain yourself. Chinyu thought for a moment. A strange expression crossed his face. After a moment of hesitation, he said, I have a great son in my hand. In all honesty, these were absolutely her original words. But as for what they meant, he really didn't know. And in the situation at the time, he had been pressed for time and didn't have a chance to ask. But little Meaty seemed to directly understand. Her eyes widened, and she earnestly looked at Chin Yu several times. It was unknown whether she was putting on an act or if she really did see something. She nodded in understanding. So that's how it is. Then perhaps there really might be a chance to leave this damn place. She reached out a hand and patted Chin Yu's shoulder. Chin Yu, then I'll leave myself in your hands. You must do your best. After she finished speaking, she gestured with her hands and then lay down where Chin Yu had just been sleeping. In almost an instant, she fell into a deep sleep. Puff! The flames were extinguished, and everything around them fell into absolute darkness. But luckily, darkness was one of Chin Yu's sore strengths to begin with. Although the darkness here was different from the outside world and was much richer, he could still just barely see his surroundings. His eyes fell on little Meaty's face. Perhaps it was because she had fallen into a deep sleep and was unable to conceal her true state, but her complexion was pale and she couldn't hide her weariness. It seemed that she hadn't been lying. In order to wait for Chin Yu to wake up, she had indeed held herself up for a very long time. Otherwise, she wouldn't have instantly fallen asleep after asking. Chin Yu took a deep breath. He slowly said, Don't worry. I said I would bring you out of here, so I will definitely keep my word. A rustling sound suddenly came from all directions. Chin Yu's complexion changed. He thought that it couldn't be. He had just spoken a few words, and now something was happening to him. But luckily, this was only a false alarm. This was because at this time, what was spreading toward him were some slowly climbing tree branches. Chin Yu only needed a single glance to find a familiar feeling. Sure enough, these tree branches gently pulled little Meaty up, skillfully weaving together to form a soft bed. Soon, a similar bed appeared in front of Chin Yu. He smiled and jumped onto it. With you two here, things will be much easier. Come, take me to the coldest place in your memories. Chapter 16:27. Chin Yu finally understood why Meaty liked to live in a place that was bright and resplendent. It was probably because she was tired of the unchanging darkness in front of her, as thick as ink that dyed the world black. Moreover, she should really be very, very lonely, and it wasn't just words. This caused Chin Yu to think back to the day when she had suddenly shown a trace of warmth. The endless world of darkness was so vast that it seemed without end. Here, there was no concept of space or time. There was only an endless emptiness and an eternal silence. And this was Meaty's home. She had lived here alone for countless years. No wonder when she first arrived in this world, even in the wilderness, Meaty still looked at it with great interest. She even said that she wanted to plant trees and vegetables and enjoy life. So to her, that was already a great enjoyment. Chini lay down on a soft bed woven from tree branches. He casually turned over, and they immediately adjusted themselves into the most comfortable position. It wasn't that the two trees were too flattering, but that after coexisting for countless years, this had already become their instinct. Considering it from this perspective, the cooking skills of the Root People chefs were probably simple. Because they had done it too many times, they had slowly reached the peak of perfection. Chinyu let out a long breath. Indeed, in this world, everything had a cause and effect. Everything he saw had its origin. He crossed his legs, not because this position was comfortable, but because he needed to constantly shake his legs to prevent himself from becoming absent-minded. This was because this place was a bit strange. If a person stayed here for too long, it was easy to feel as if their brains had become rusty, and sometimes they would forget how to think. Chinyu would occasionally notice this, and he would be on guard against it. He always felt that he couldn't really fall into this, otherwise there would be great trouble. He was seriously thinking about a few things. First, his current state. It wasn't that Chinyu was selfish and only cared about himself, but that there had to be an order to everything in this world. Meaty had fallen into a deep slumber. If he wanted to wake her up and then smoothly leave this place, he could only rely on Chinyu's efforts. If there was a problem with himself, then that would be the true problem. Everything would be over. How to say this place was indeed mystical. Chinyu had entered this world of darkness in his soul state. But now, he didn't feel any discomfort at all. He felt that his soul was solid, no different from his mortal body. There was a high chance that this matter was related to Meaty. This was because Chinyu could clearly feel that in this world of darkness, his soul was in a state of constantly losing strength. But now, his soul was in a state where it was as stable as his body, causing this loss to be greatly reduced. In simpler terms, Chinyu could persist here in his soul state for a longer period of time. Of course, even so, he would still try to open this world of darkness as soon as possible. He didn't know why, but in this darkness, he felt a bit restless. The second thing was to search for the so-called coldest place in this dark world. In truth, the concept of coldest was more of a feeling on the level of the mind and soul. As the saying goes, extreme yang generates yin, and extreme yin generates yang. Only by finding a suitable place could one achieve twice the result with half the effort and increase the success rate to the highest. Right now, he was on the path of searching, and little Meaty's two trees were very useful. As for the third matter, Chinyu didn't know if it was true or not. After little Meaty fell into a deep slumber, he felt a gaze quietly fall on him. It was extremely indifferent, without the least bit of emotion. But it caused a great deal of vigilance to rise up in his heart. He focused his senses to sense, but found nothing. Chinyu almost thought that this was just an illusion born from suppressing his mind in the darkness. But his intuition told him that it wasn't an illusion. Then he could only be more cautious. The only good news was that these two great trees had accompanied little Meaty for countless years in the darkness. They clearly had a rich exploration experience in this world of darkness. As time passed, Chinyu could clearly feel the temperature of this world of darkness decreasing. He took a deep breath and sat up straight. He rubbed his hands together and looked forwards. Now that the direction was correct, all that was left was a matter of time. The once encampment of the Stone God tribe was now in ruins. The large and small stones that had been piled up on the ground had all been dug up and divided up. Besides the occasional broken wall, it was hard to imagine that a powerful barbarian tribe had once existed here. After the totem Godstone perished, tribe leader Stonebrave's whereabouts were unknown. The several remaining elders began to fight amongst themselves, exhausting the last bit of the Stone God tribe's vitality. Afterwards, the tribesmen either died or fled. This caused the powerful stone god tribe to be battered by the wind and rain in just a few years. Several barbarians from small tribes were constantly rummaging through the ruins of the stone god tribe encampment. As the saying went, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Although the stone god tribe had been completely destroyed, there might still be some good things that had yet to be discovered. For instance, those crushed stones that had absorbed the aura of the totem god stone. Each one was an excellent refining material. It was said that several days ago, someone had inadvertently found a piece the size of a child's fist. When the sun shined on it, it would emit a faint halo of light. This was enough to cause a small tribe to be pleasantly surprised. Let's rest a bit. Our luck today isn't good. I fear it will be difficult to obtain anything. An old barbarian spat out a mouthful of mud and sand. He turned and sat down on a nearby stone. Unfortunately, although this stone wasn't small, it wasn't useful at all. It was just a large stone that could only support ones. But that's right. I think we shouldn't come back in the future. The stone god tribe is too poor. There isn't even a single good thing left behind. Several barbarian juniors complained. The old barbarian took out his smoking pipe and took a deep puff. He sneered, "Do you dare to say it now? If it was a few years ago, even if you had 800 times the courage, would you have dared to say half a word?" Several barbarian juniors shrunk their necks, a look of resentment on their faces. The stone god tribe was a great tribe that ruled over 10,000 miles. Just the vassal tribes alone numbered over 100. The small tribes that they came from didn't even have the qualifications to carry shoes for others, let alone gossip about them. If they dared to do so, then they were truly tired of living. Uncle, everyone in our tribe knows that you have always been the most well-informed. Do you know what happened to the stone god tribe? How did such a powerful tribe completely decline in just a few years? A junior barbarian said with a smile. He wiped his dirty hands and came over to massage the old barbarian's shoulders. The others also widened their eyes, revealing curious expressions. They had long wanted to know about this matter. They had asked before, but they didn't get any reply. For such a big matter, even if they only knew bits and pieces of it, it was enough for them to go back and brag about it. Then, they could exaggerate and say how they were at that time. Who knows, they might even be able to shock some inexperienced girls. That would be great. The old barbarian sneered, but his reaction made the eyes of several barbarian juniors brighten. He didn't directly refuse, which meant that there was hope. Uncle, just say it. That's right, the stone god tribe has completely declined. Even if you tell us, there won't be any trouble. Our mouths are sealed. Even if you reveal the heavenly secret, we won't say a word. The old barbarian sneered, his face full of disdain. I've seen you guys since you were young. All you know is how to shit. What's the use of saying these words to me? He took 2 more puffs and spat out a thick, spicy smoke. But there's one thing you guys are right about. The stone god tribe has completely fallen. There are some things that can't be considered karma by saying them. He cleared his throat and spat out thick phlegm. The old barbarian pointed at the ruins in front of him. 5 years ago, the stone god tribe invited the desolate Marquis Zhongwu to help the totem god stone advance. But who would have thought that it was a trap? At least 4 sides joined forces. Some wanted to kill people, some wanted to chase people away, and some wanted to live for a few hundred more years. Those who were killed did not want to die. Those who were chased away did not want to leave. So there was a conflict. The result was that whoever went to the stone god tribe would be unlucky. The stone god tribe became men with their spines broken. They could only lie on their beds. If there was no accident, they might not have died. After all, it is hard to find such an obedient dog like the stone god tribe in the barbarians. The old barbarian's lips curled up, revealing a trace of disdain. It was a dark and windy night. For sneaky old cripples sneakily attacked the totem god stone that was about to come back to life. After paying a price, they completely shattered its vitality. Therefore, the stone god tribe is finished. Shurgan escaped and struggled at death's door, but he is like a grasshopper after autumn. No matter how hard he struggles, he can only live for another 3 to 5 years. I'm afraid he will die soon." The eyes of the group of young barbarians lit up as they listened. They thought that their uncle was indeed worthy of being a famous talker in the tribe. His words were full of mystery, but the key point was that they sounded like the truth. This was not a loss at all. If this were to spread out, it would definitely scare many people. Looking at the faces of these boys, the old barbarian knew what they were thinking. He laughed and said, fuck off. Hurry up and look around. We won't take your achievements and leave." The group of young barbarians giggled as they left. The old barbarian picked up his smoking pipe and took a few more puffs. He narrowed his eyes and slowly exhaled smoke. "You brought this upon yourself. You can't live. At this time, the several young barbarians that left didn't see the stone that the old barbarian was sitting on. There was a pained expression on its face, a pleading look in its eyes. The old barbarian looked down at him, his expression particularly calm. "That's right, I'm talking about you. Hurry up and die. I'm waiting to pick up some treasure." After waiting for some time, he saw that it was getting late and that the stone he was sitting on didn't show any signs of cracking. The old barbarian became a bit impatient. After a moment of hesitation, he picked up his smoking pipe and used the copper pot to strike the stone. Kacha! The stone cracked open. The face that appeared on its surface, filled with despair and unwillingness, completely vanished. "Io, my butt." The old barbarian stomped his feet and cursed. Then he bent down and picked up a palm-sized stone that seemed to be made of crystal. "Treasure, treasure." Just as he shouted these words, he hurriedly covered his mouth and kicked several young barbarians that were trying to catch up. "Look at your mothers. Hurry up and leave. If you stay here, you'll die." The old barbarian jumped onto the wooden cart. The several young barbarians pushed and pulled him away like a gust of wind. The old barbarian crossed his arms and turned to look at the ruins of the Stone God Tribe station. His eyes were indifferent, without any emotion. From this moment on, the curtains were drawn. The Stone God Tribe had vanished into thin air. Chapter 16:28. In the grotto, Baiji was kneeling on the ground with a gauze in her hand. She was carefully wiping Meaty's face. Her eyes were devout and respectful. She didn't dare to overdo it, as if she was afraid of waking up the sleeping lord. For the past 5 years, she had been like this every day. Baiji's respect for Meaty hadn't been reduced because she had been asleep for a long time. After finishing, she carefully cleaned the gauze and knelt on the ground. "This servant has offended you. Please don't blame me." A light cough came from behind, followed by a few gasps. "The madam's soul is gone, and she can't wake up. What you did was really unnecessary." Baiji's face was expressionless. She didn't change at all. She turned around and looked at him with cold eyes. "It seems you are really going to die." Gosheng raised an eyebrow and wiped his nose and mouth. "How do you know?" Baiji said, "You talk too much." Gosheng was silent for a moment. Then, he said with emotion, "I didn't expect you to be so smart. But since you are so smart, how can you not notice the madam's disgust for you?" Baiji's eyes were cold. The temperature in the air crazily dropped, and a trace of cold and fierce aura slowly emerged. Gosheng's mouth curved up. "What? Did I poke a sore spot and you want to turn against me?" He sat up straight with his arms on the ground and patted his chest. "Come, don't be polite. Stab me with your sword. If I dodge, I will be your son." Baiji's eyes became colder. "You are really going to die." Gosheng curled his lips. "You said this 2 years ago, but even today, I am still panting with you. Do you think it's interesting?" Baiji said, "2 years ago, you could still use 2 swords, but now, you can only use 1 more sword." She paused for a moment and then continued, "This time, you will die." Gosheng clapped his hands and exclaimed in admiration, That's right. But my last sword will definitely drag you down with me. Do you believe me?" Baiji slowly nodded. The coldness in her body disappeared. She sat back on the ground and closed her eyes. She didn't speak, but the meaning in her eyes was very clear. Because of this, you can live to this day. Under normal circumstances, the two of them would fall into silence after their daily battle, until Baiji wiped Little Flesh's face the next day. But today, Go Sheng felt that he still wanted to say a few more words. He frowned and said, "Hey, Baiji, aren't you curious why I can still have such a terrifying sword when I'm only left with a little bit of life? Even you're not willing to touch it." Baiji opened her eyes. "If I ask, will you tell me?" Go Sheng nodded. "Yes." "Then tell me." Go Sheng rubbed his chin. "Your attitude is a little too insincere, but forget it. I don't care about my attitude when I want to say something." He raised his hand and pointed at himself. "Look at me. Yes, look at me. Have you realized that I'm a sword?" Goli was smiling. This was the third generation of the Leaf family who had his sword Dao severed. He had to endure endless pain and suffering every day, but he never revealed any of it. Even if he knelt down and became a dog, he could still maintain his calm. But now, for the first time, some emotions rose from the bottom of his heart. He pointed again and again, easily poking holes in the ground. His smile grew brighter. "Look, this is the proof." Baiji frowned slightly. He stared at Go Sheng with surprise in his eyes, but there was also a hint of burning desire in his eyes. "Do you understand?" Go Sheng laughed. "Don't you find it strange that there's a freak like me in this world? In fact, it's very simple. My parents are the strongest sword cultivators in this world. They only have swords in their hearts. They don't have the concept of blood affinity. The reason why they chose to give birth was that they hoped to give birth to a good sword embryo through this method. But later, they discovered that there was a small problem with this idea. If they insisted on continuing, one of them would have to die. Neither of my parents wanted to die, so they abandoned me without hesitation and returned to the mountains to continue their cultivation. That's why I survived and was given the title of Sword Immortal by the Leaf family. TSK. Don't you think it's funny? Laugh if you want, because I also feel that my life in this world is indeed a joke." Baiji was expressionless. She thought for a moment and said slowly, "Tell me all this and let me see through your nature. What do you want?" After saying so much in one breath, Go Sheng was a little exhausted. His extremely pale face showed an abnormal redness. He took a few breaths and said with a smile, "I can promise you, but I will guard the sword intent in my main body until the end of my life. I will not let it leak out even a little bit. With my corpse, you can forge a sword that is perfect for you. Not only will it solve your flaws, but it will also improve your strength. I think you won't doubt this. After all, this should be our madam's original idea." Baiji said, "What do I want to do?" Go Sheng raised 2 fingers. Baiji frowned. Go Sheng smiled and shook his head. "Baiji, you have to be patient. Let me finish, okay? First, before I die, you are not allowed to do anything to Marquis Zhongwu. I want you to swear on your sword heart. Even if I pass out one day, it will still be effective. Second, refine my corpse into a sword. If there is a chance in the future, go to the Leaf family in the Central Province. Don't stare. I won't let you avenge me. That is no different from asking you to kill yourself. Find my parents and show them the sword. Tell them that I am very grateful to their ancestors for allowing me to live and appear in this world." Baiji pondered and said nothing. Go Sheng sneered. "Don't be discontented. My conditions are already very fair. The first thing is just a start, and the rest is just a meeting. I didn't set a time limit. You can wait until you have enough confidence before doing it." He narrowed his eyes. "Otherwise, before I die, I will cut out this sword in my body and let you watch as a peerless sword is destroyed." Baiji nodded. "Okay." She raised her hand and swore on her sword heart. She was straightforward and didn't play any tricks. Go Sheng smiled and nodded. He lay back and fell into a deep sleep. Baiji could immediately see that he had reached his limit. In his deep sleep, he could die at any moment. Had he been tricked? It couldn't be considered that. If she didn't agree, then Go Sheng really would cut out that sword. And it was likely that the sword edge would be aimed at her. She looked at the unconscious Go Sheng, and then at the loyal Marquis, Ning Qin. Then, she closed her eyes and began to meditate. It was just a bit of time. She would just have to wait. The darkness was even colder. Qin Yu had no choice but to sit down cross-legged and revolve his soul force with all his strength. Only then was he just barely able to resist. But, if so, the rate at which his soul passed away would be much faster, In other words, in this state, the amount of time Qin you could last would be greatly reduced. The two trees beside Little Meaty continued to move forwards, but their speed was much slower. Qin, you could clearly feel the fear they emitted. It was like in the unknown darkness ahead, there was some strength suppressing them. Calculating the time, another 4 hours passed. A layer of frost began to form on the branches of the two trees. Soon, it thickened and solidified into ice crystals, as if they were wearing clothes made of ice. Peepa, peepa, the branches began to crack apart, turning into ice powder that fell to the ground. The speed at which the two trees moved forwards had slowed to the extreme. They were barely moving forwards, one step at a time. Qin opened his eyes and let out a long breath. For them to persist until here and endure the fear and cold, they were already loyal and devoted to him. If they continued forwards, even if they could persist, these two trees would likely suffer irreparable damage. As the saying went, appearance came from the heart. Although this cold came from the heart, as long as you believed it, it truly existed. This wasn't to say that you could ignore it if you didn't believe it, but that as long as you stepped within a certain range, you would unconsciously and instinctively believe this. Only those with a boundary that surpassed the boundaries could break through the void and see the truth. Only then could you achieve the state of being impervious to all techniques as long as your heart didn't believe it. The two trees couldn't accomplish this, and neither could Qin. But it was unknown whether it was because Little Meaty had helped him stabilize his soul, or whether it was because he was a man holding a sun in his hand, but he was still able to persist. Of course, even if he could persist, he would still feel the icy cold. The surface of his soul was covered in a thick layer of white frost. It melted, and then reappeared. After repeating this several times, the result was that Qin Yu's entire body was wet. The taste of this extreme cold was truly refreshing. Qin Yu tried to dispel the moisture around him, but it came from the cold and seemed to possess some sort of immortal attribute. All sorts of methods were useless against it. Now, he decided not to waste any more energy and just let it be. Stop. You all wait here and don't go any further. Qin Yu stood up and let out a breath of cold air. He rubbed his hands together and turned to look at Little Meaty. She was sleeping soundly like before, and the chill in the dark didn't disturb her at all. This left Qin Yu envious. At the same time, he bitterly smiled and felt fear deep in his heart. In the past, he had lost his mind and followed Little Meaty home. But now that he was facing a true life or death trial, he began to panic a little. If he failed, he would really be finished. If he were to be locked here, his soul would wither away and die. He rubbed between his eyebrows and flicked his sleeves. His feet moved, and he floated forwards. This was also one of the most mysterious aspects of this world of darkness. It didn't have any substance, and a person could naturally float in the air. They could move up and down, left and right, and they could reach places with just a thought. It was like a person in water. Hiss! It was impossible to think about it. As soon as the word water was mentioned, he suddenly felt even colder. This was a similar feeling that Qin Yu had experienced in the past when he passed through the icy sea in the depths of the dark abyss and returned to the vast Yang world. But today, in terms of cultivation, Qin Yu was over 100 times stronger than he was back then. From this, it could be seen just how terrifying the extreme cold in this world of darkness was. Chapter 16:29. As he walked forwards, Qin Yu held onto a branch that was wet from his clothes and wet from his wet clothes. From time to time, an extremely dim green light would flash across its surface, guiding Qin Yu in the right direction. Otherwise, it would be very easy for one to get lost in the endless darkness without any coordinates and see nothing but a vast expanse. At this time, Qin Yu had already been walking alone for an hour. The chill in the darkness had risen by 30% compared to when they parted ways. This was already terrifying. The heat released by his soul was no longer able to melt the white frost in time. Thus, the water began to freeze. As Qin Yu moved forwards, every step he took emitted cracking sounds. The thin layer of ice covering his body was breaking apart. But, at the same time, Qin Yu felt an excruciating pain as if his flesh and bones were breaking apart. This feeling was hard to describe. The green light on the surface of the branch became much darker, and the frequency at which it flashed was much slower than before. Frowning, Qin Yu lifted his hand and placed it on the branch. Then his face paled. If he shared some of the warmth with it, Qin Yu would have to withstand more of the damage brought by the power of ice. The most direct manifestation of this was that the layer of ice covering his body had suddenly thickened. What followed was that with every step Qin Yu took, the layer of ice would shatter and the pain he felt would rise. But this was necessary. Even though he knew this, he still had to do it. Otherwise, without the guidance of the branch, Qin Yu wouldn't be able to find the correct position. This was something that it had mentioned before. If he wanted to save someone, he had to find the right place. Kacha! Kacha! In the darkness, rhythmic sounds constantly echoed out. This represented that Qin Yu was moving forward step after step, and he was enduring more pain than before. The pain of his flesh and bones breaking was no different from being cut alive. In front of him was boundless darkness. He couldn't see the end, but it also seemed as if there would never be an end. This was something that left him feeling even more despair than the pain he felt. But now that he had come this far, there was no turning back. Either he could leave here alive, or he could die here. Like this, Misty would fall into a deep slumber. When she woke up, she would still be that mysterious and formidable existence hidden in space-time. It was just that she would lose a small portion of her memories from her long life. Thinking of this, Qin Yu pursed his lips, a firm look in his eyes. 2 hours later, the branch in his chest nearly fell into a deep slumber. It was covered in a thick layer of ice and was frozen together with Qin Yu. After a long time, a green light flashed on its surface. As for Qin Yu, it was like he was wearing a thick suit of ice armor. Every step he took caused the ground to rumble. His vision darkened. This was a sign that his mind was reaching its limit, and he could collapse at any moment. However, this situation had been going on for quite some time now, and he was still moving forward. Although he was moving a bit slower than before, he didn't stop. Another hour later, Qin Yu's entire body was covered in a layer of ice. He had turned into a giant, moving block of ice. Only the faint cracking sounds coming from within indicated that he was still alive. Their speed of advance became very slow. Often, it would take several breaths before they could take a single step forward. There was a light cracking sound mixed with the cracking sounds. It was the branch in Qin Yu's chest. It was finally unable to withstand the extreme cold outside. In a frozen state, it directly shattered into powder. Why do we still have to go forward? If you feel that there is no way out, then I can give you another choice. A calm voice suddenly sounded out in his ears. Qin Yu paused for a long time before he confirmed that this wasn't an illusion. Who are you? That isn't important. What is important is that I can allow you to leave here alive. I can consider it as you taking a different path. Why? Because I think that you are a very interesting creature. Ling, it would be a pity if you were to die here. I don't believe you. It's simple. A trace of warmth shined on Qin Yu's body. At this moment, he felt like a traveler in the desert who was about to die of thirst and suddenly had a drop of sweet spring water fall into his mouth. At this moment, the throbbing in his heart and his instinct to survive left him impatient. He instantly reacted. The voice sounded out once more. As long as you want to, you can leave at any time. You don't need to do anything, just turn a thought. If you leave here, you will discover that not only will you be unharmed, but you will also experience the dark cold tide and obtain unexpected harvests. At that time, you will become even stronger. If you cultivate seriously, it may not be impossible for you to return here in the future and save her. And death, especially if you die here, is eternal annihilation. Your soul fragments will be used as nourishment by the person you're trying to save. She will collect, decompose, and absorb them. Of course, this is not her original intention, but please believe me when I say that this is your end. Qin Yu's body trembled. The ice ball emitted crackling sounds. He didn't know who the owner of this voice was, but he believed that there wasn't the slightest bit of falsehood in these words. But he remained silent, motionless as he endured the heart-wrenching pain. Chinyu, you are far more outstanding than I imagined. If you had agreed just now, you would have lost the additional reward I gave you. Yes, that was a test just now, and you have already passed it. If you choose to leave now, I will give you a great fortune. For instance, I will let you see the threshold to the Emperor realm in advance. You have persisted until now and remained silent. This is already benevolent enough. No one will question you because of this. What's more, no one will ever find out about this. This is the promise I can give you right now. Believe in my sincerity. Take my reward and leave this place now. I guarantee that this will be your only chance. Chinyu could no longer speak. But because of the arrival of an unknown power, every thought he had would be spoken directly in this world. After a brief silence in the darkness, his calm voice rang out. You have very little experience. When you do something like this, your tone needs to fluctuate a little. Only then will you have the power to move people's hearts. Also, after little Meaty fell asleep, that gaze that has been silently watching me should have come from you, right? You have hidden for so long, and only now have you jumped out and offered me such good conditions. It seems that you really don't want me to save her and leave this place. Also, I should be very close to success now, right? After several breaths of time, just as Chinyu thought that the voice wouldn't give him a response, it spoke up once more. Chinyu, you are smarter than I imagined. But smart people often understand that only when they live can there be meaning to everything. If you save her, you will die. This is the judgment of your fate, effective immediately. Chinyu's heart violently shrank. An intense fear of death shrouded his mind. For no reason at all, Chinyu's intuition told him that everything this voice said would become an unchangeable fact. If he saved little Meaty, he would die. Chinyu's mind violently shook. At this moment, his strong survival instinct crazily struggled and howled. Nod. Chinyu nod, hurry up and nod. With a single thought, he would be able to escape from certain death and obtain an unimaginable fortune. What did the threshold of the Emperor realm mean? If he could see it in advance, he could prepare in advance and build a solid ladder step by step. As long as he had enough time, he was destined to be able to step into it and become a true peak existence of the great desolate world. At that time, what would that clan do? It wasn't impossible to save Ningling. However, the bright future of a great life and the end of death could be decided by a single thought. What was he still hesitating for? Nod, hurry up and nod. In his mind, he instinctively let out a mournful roar, like rolling thunder, rumbling and exploding continuously. Blood seeped out of Chinyu's orifices. Strangely, it wasn't frozen by the extreme cold of the darkness. Instead, it melted into the ice like a drop of blood falling into clear water. It rapidly spread and dyed the entire giant block of ice dark red. Chinyu's body trembled. The blood-red block of ice constantly shattered. Kacha, kacha, like a madly beating heart. Refuse. Swish. In his mind, the instinctive howls and howls instantly disappeared without a trace. Along with them, the voice that had appeared in Chinyu's ears just now also disappeared. He had made his choice. It wasn't because Chinyu wasn't afraid of death, but because he knew that if he wanted to obtain anything in this world, he had to pay a price. The more he obtained, the greater the price. To leave alive, the threshold of the Emperor realm. This meant that Chinyu would have to pay a price that was equal to, or even far greater than that. What would it be? Chinyu didn't know, but it definitely wouldn't be too wonderful. It might even make him feel that living was far worse than death. Since this was the case, why not take a gamble? And the reason that supported Chinyu and made him dare to take a gamble was actually very simple. Because just now, the owner of the voice had only dared to look at him after Meaty had fallen into a deep slumber. If one pondered deeply, they would be able to decipher the meaning behind it. Do you think I must die just because you say so? That wasn't necessarily the case. Moreover, The future benefits of this gamble were extremely substantial. Having Meaty by his side and not having Meaty by his side were two absolutely different circumstances. As the saying goes, the bigger the bet, the bigger the win. This time, Chinyu had even staked his own life on the line. As long as he won, he would be full. Your choice was correct. A trace of warmth suddenly spread from his chest. It was Chinyu's beating heart. Right now, it was like a sun that released endless light and heat. The ice that covered the surface of his body rapidly melted away at a speed visible to the naked eye. Chinyu gasped for breath and hurriedly closed his eyes. Under the illumination of the bright light, his face appeared incomparably pale. A great sun rose from his chest and appeared in front of him. A blurry figure emerged from within. It looked at Chinyu with a complex look in its eyes. Chinyu raised his hand and rubbed the space between his eyebrows. He narrowed his eyes and allowed his tears to flow freely. I'm guessing there's a but behind your words. You guessed right. The figure within the great sun said in a calm voice. There is one thing that you are mistaken about. It isn't that he can't appear before the master of this place falls asleep, but rather that the two sides have already made an agreement. Chinyu frowned. Was I wrong? The figure within the great sun nodded. No one can change his judgment. He leaned forward and earnestly looked at Chinyu. Now, do you regret your choice? Chinyu blinked. Is there any use in regretting? The figure in the sun shook his head. Chinyu smiled. Then why should I regret it? He raised his head and looked at the darkness above him. Since you took the initiative to appear, it means that I've found the right place. Is this it? Yes. Chinyu lifted a finger, his movements elegant and confident. Go. Shua. This great sun suddenly rose high into the sky, and with a loud rumble, endless light burst out like a stormy sea, violently shaking and sweeping in all directions. In an instant, it illuminated this world that was eternally shrouded in darkness. This scene was like an ancient god splitting apart the heavens and earth. Chapter 16:30. The light dispersed the darkness. Meaty's eyelashes trembled slightly as she lay on a soft bed made of tree branches. She then opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was the great sun above her head that released endless light and heat. Her eyes widened and she revealed a helpless smile. Little Chinyu, you actually managed to take this step. Shua. She stepped forwards and her figure instantly vanished. When she reappeared, she reached out a hand and caught the falling Chinyu. Save one, die one. This was the judgment of fate. No one could change it. Since Meaty had woken up, Chinyu was naturally going to die. In the western barbarian territory, at the top of Mount Hung, amidst the endless falling snow, the black-tiled temple was solemn and solemn. The grand shaman of Meng Mountain, who was sitting cross-legged on the pure white floor of the temple, suddenly sensed something. His eyes snapped open, a pained and sorrowful expression on his face. Endless despair appeared in the depths of his eyes. 6 years ago, when His Majesty's aura disappeared, the Grand Magus of Meng Mountains could only vaguely sense that His Majesty's life force was still there. It was as if he was in some strange place and had an unknown encounter. Yet at that moment, he could clearly sense the grief and weeping that came from his berserker blood. The barbarian sovereign had passed away. The Grand Shaman of Meng Mountains took a deep breath, slowly rose to his feet, and knelt down. He roared, "Farewell, barbarian sovereign, for your body has transformed into the vast expanse, and your soul has returned to the earth." At the peak of Hung Mountain, a strong wind blew, and the falling snow turned blood red. In the blink of an eye, it covered the entire mountain peak. It caused the snow-white world to turn into a boundless blood-red color, desolate and sorrowful. On this day, all the totems of the barbarian tribes in the barbarian territory outside the great desolate lands revealed their true forms at the same time. They knelt on the ground and wailed in grief, expressing their grief towards the death of the barbarian emperor. The world was shaken. The totem of the Flowing Fire tribe was a palm-sized spirit that was born from the underground fire vein. Now, It appeared in the flames, rolling around and crying bitterly. My emperor has collapsed. The berserkers' kismet has been severed. They no longer have a path of survival. It's over. It's completely over. Everyone will die. No one will survive. The tribe leader of the Flowing Fire tribe and the few elders kneeled on the ground with pale faces. At this moment, they only felt that all their hopes had turned to dust. It wasn't because they were truly sad, but because their bloodline instinctively felt endless despair. It came from the bottom of his heart, and he could not control it at all. Now, all of them had their eyes wide open, and their hearts were filled with blankness and fear. They thought to themselves, what exactly is going on? Last year, the clan had obtained a precious stone, and it seemed that they could use it to turn the situation around. How did the situation suddenly become like this? Berserker Emperor. When did the Berserker tribe have a new emperor? Moreover, he suddenly died without any warning. A few young barbarians rushed over in a frenzy. Uncle, uncle, the tribe said that our new emperor has fallen, and the barbarians are doomed. Their faces were filled with fear and panic. Then, they discovered that the old barbarian's body was shaking like a sieve. His face had become extremely strange. One moment it was red, the next moment it was purple. His eyes were wide open as if they were about to explode at any moment. Uncle, what's wrong? A young barbarian put on a long face as he carefully reached out his hand. He was afraid that the barbarian would not be able to withstand the blow and would pass out in a single breath. Pa! Before he could even touch the old barbarian's face, he was slapped away. Hee ha 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 ha! You bunch of old bastards, I'm not wrong. You're the ones who are wrong. I knew you were wrong. The end is not the end. Only by being reborn from death can we usher in true change. The great prosperity of the Berserker tribe shall begin today. They rushed out of the tent. The old barbarian knelt on the ground and continuously kissed the ground. Tears streamed down his face, and he was extremely emotional. The young barbarians of the Flowing Fire tribe looked at the old barbarian who was on the verge of going crazy and were about to cry. It's over. Uncle has gone crazy from fear. Central Desolate Divine Continent, 13th Tower. The messenger flying swords were sent back as fast as they could, regardless of the cost. An old ancestor of the Sioux family, who had betrayed the family and joined the 13th Tower, did not hesitate to exhaust his entire cultivation to ascertain the heavenly secrets. The Berserker Emperor was dead. Countless cheers rang out in the 13th Tower. The Qin Empire had ordered to reduce taxes and amnesty for the people. The important figures of the 4 clans and 4 sects heaved a sigh of relief at the same time. Except for the Sioux family's yin-yang world, which had an extremely depressing atmosphere, they all revealed smiles. The Berserker Emperor's existence was like a fishbone in the throat to all the people in the 9 regions of the Great Desolate. If he died, then everyone would be safe. On the same day, the 3rd-generation junior of the Central Desolately family, Li Ruhua, passed through the Wudong County's array formation and directly returned to her family. She was received by the patriarch and a group of elders. Afterwards, a great cultivator from the 13th Tower arrived. It was unknown what sort of confirmation was made, but the implications and consequences of Li Ji's death were directly erased. Li Ruhua obtained a spot to enter the 13th Tower to cultivate. It was rumored that a senior from the 11th Tower had chosen Li Ruhua and was willing to accept her as a closed-door disciple. The Li family was filled with cheers and laughter. To pique families like them, for a direct disciple to enter the 13th Tower to cultivate was a great stroke of good fortune. Li Ruhua already had a special status to begin with. After this matter, her status in the family rose once more. For a time, rumors spread out from within the Li family. As long as Li Ruhua returned from the 13th Tower, she would obtain the status of an elder. There was even a chance that she would become the next ruler of the Li family as a woman in the future. But no one knew that at this time, Li Ruhua was sitting alone in a training chamber. She looked down at the red spot on her palm, her complexion incomparably pale. He didn't feel anything at all. It was like he had slept for a very, very long time. Then, Qin Yu slowly opened his eyes. At this moment, his vision blurred. Vaguely, he seemed to see a gate that spanned the heavens and earth. This gate shined with a golden light, incomparably dazzling beneath the sunlight. But it didn't give off the slightest feeling of vulgarity. Rather, there was only endless majesty and dignity. He blinked, trying to see it more clearly. But this gate soon vanished, and a familiar face appeared in front of him. "Yo, you're finally willing to wake up? Hurry up and wipe off the drool from the corners of your mouth. How disgusting. Just what kind of dream did you have just now?" Little Meaty had a look of disgust. She swept her eyes over Chin Yu's suspicious areas, but when she couldn't find any evidence, she rolled her eyes. It was unknown whether she was disappointed or something else. "Little Meaty!" Chin Yu shouted out loud. He suddenly sat up and looked around. As he felt the familiar aura around him, a smile gradually appeared on his face. "We're back." Little Meaty's eyes softened a little. We're back." She stood up and walked outside. "But you should clean up your personal problems first. You're so dirty and stinky. Soak in and take a short nap. It'll be good for you." Within the large wooden barrel, steam was rising. A pale green liquid was slowly bubbling. Chin Yu walked to the side and looked down. His eyebrows immediately furrowed together. With his messy hair and unkempt beard, he looked like a savage. "Just how long did I sleep for?" His lips twitched. Inexplicably, he thought back to how he had been frightened by Little Meaty. There was even a lingering fear. No, otherwise Little Meaty wouldn't be so calm. "Stop trying to scare yourself." Chin Yu rubbed his chin and sat down in the barrel. Hiss! It was like countless ants had instantly drilled into his flesh and bones. It was numb and sore. But after that, he felt unprecedentedly comfortable. I closed my eyes, opened my eyes, and came back. I feel like there are many things that happened here. Just as Chin Yu was thinking this, he couldn't resist the overwhelming drowsiness. He leaned against the edge of the barrel and fell asleep. Little Meaty's figure appeared beside the barrel. She thought for a moment and placed a finger between Chin Yu's eyebrows. After sensing for a moment, she let out a light breath. "Chin Yu, you're fine. You're even better than before." A calm voice sounded out from behind. Little Meaty turned and glanced at him. "Let's go outside and talk." "All right." The two walked out, one behind the other. Outside the cave, Baiji was kneeling on the ground. Gosheng had already woken up. Although he was emaciated, his eyes were particularly bright. Their gazes carefully fell on the two people that walked out of the cave. They knew that as long as these two wanted to, they could leave them beyond redemption with a single thought. The madam was fine. They had long since become accustomed to her unfathomably strong and unparalleled strength. But who was this man? It was fine if he was handsome to the point of being unreasonable, but he was also so strong. Gosheng's emotions were pure curiosity and awe. As for Baiji, besides these two emotions, there was also a deep sense of dread and hostility. The man walking behind suddenly turned around. Gosheng heard a stifled cough from the side. He turned his head and saw that Baiji had become even whiter. Beads of blood were seeping out of her mouth, nose, ears, and eyes. Strong, really strong, strong to the point of leaving one in despair. But this time, Gosheng's eyes had become even brighter than before. Little Meaty didn't turn around. She lightly said, "She is my maid. Even if she is a bit stupid, if you want to beat a dog, you have to look at its master." The man behind her faintly smiled. If it weren't for that, she would already be dead. Little Meaty thought for a moment and slowly nodded, agreeing with this explanation. She stopped and casually waved her hand. But at this time, she stopped midway. "You come." The man lifted a hand and isolated space, forming a small sealed world. He looked at Little Meaty and hesitated for a moment. "In order to save Chin Yu, is it worth it to pay such a price?" Little Meaty said, "Is there a possibility of regret?" The man shook his head. Little Meaty coldly sneered. "Isn't that just nonsense?" The man thought for a moment and then cupped his hands together. "In the end, I still have to thank you." Little Meaty waved her hand. "There is no need. When Chin Yu saved me, he didn't think too much about it." She paused for a moment and then said, There are some things he will definitely ask you. Just tell him as we agreed. The man nodded. All right. Little Meaty looked at him. I find it a bit strange that you would actually agree to help and expose yourself to him. You and I both know the risks involved in this matter. So, can you give me an explanation? The man was silent for a moment. Then he faintly smiled. The explanation is that I feel that I should save you. When it comes to things like intuition, you have to believe in it. Moreover, the current situation isn't as dangerous as you say it is. For the two of us to stand here and speak, that is the best evidence. Humph! Little Meaty coldly sneered. He only has scruples in his heart. If there is a chance in the future, he definitely won't be lenient. The man didn't deny this. His expression was faint. Then don't give him a chance. Moreover, besides you and me, Chinyu has other cards in his hand. As he spoke to her, there was a thoughtful look on his face. Although his memories hadn't been restored, after reaching this step, he could certainly sense that there was something unusual about Chinyu. Or it was more accurate to say that he had already discovered something. In the past, when he was chosen to be the vessel, was it really just a coincidence? Or was it something that was predestined long ago? Chapter 16:31. Little Meaty seemed to guess his thoughts. She lightly said, there are some things that can only be verified with time. Thinking too much about it is useless. The man thought for a moment. He cupped his hands together and bowed. I understand. He stood up and said, your current state is similar to the other one. As for the one who hasn't been unsealed yet, I think we should wait and see. Little Meaty said, that's what I think too. She looked back in the direction of the cave. Chinyu has woken up. You can go now. Remember not to speak too much. The man faintly smiled. Okay. He turned around. This time, Baiji lowered her head, not daring to reveal the least bit of disrespect. In the wooden barrel, Chinyu woke up. He felt his entire body brimming with energy, and his condition was at an unprecedented peak. As he closed his eyes and sensed his body, he opened his eyes as he heard footsteps. He looked at the man walking in from outside the cave and asked, what happened after I fell unconscious? The man stopped beside the barrel. He furrowed his eyebrows. I promised her that I wouldn't speak carelessly. Chinyu sneered. It seems you have forgotten who is on your side. He stood up and prepared to pull the man into the barrel. The man dodged to the side. He helplessly shook his head. Even if you want to commit suicide, you shouldn't frame me. Hurry up and speak. The man looked up into Chinyu's eyes. You died. He paused for a moment and then said, and now you're alive again. Chinyu frowned. Don't learn to speak like that. It's hard for me to listen. Moreover, was the price she paid very great? Very great. The man had a serious expression. So, I think you should treat her a little better in the future. Chinyu rubbed his temples. He had clearly disregarded his life and risked everything to save her. So why did he end up owing her a favor? The man's smile widened. A truly intelligent man will never haggle over the women around him. Chinyu glanced at him. Are you very experienced? The man's smile froze. Humph. Chinyu curled his lips. Then stop putting on an act. Let's get down to business. Did we make a loss this time, or did we make a profit? The man said, from the looks of it, we made a profit. He raised a finger. First, Little Meaty is back. With her by your side, as long as you don't seek death, it shouldn't be too difficult. Second, didn't you see a door just now? There's no need to doubt it. It's not an illusion. It's the gate you're thinking about. Since you've seen it, there's hope for the great Tao in the future. However, this isn't because that person is fulfilling his promise. This is an opportunity given to you by Little Meaty. That's why I said that you'd better treat her a little better. Thirdly, the Berserker Sovereign has fallen. The human cultivators have already confirmed this, so you don't have to worry about being hunted down anymore. You can relax a little. Chinyu glanced at him. Tell me about the losses. The man nodded and put up another finger. First, I've been exposed. This matter will definitely have hidden dangers, but it'll be fine in the short term. Secondly, Little Meaty had lost something, so her future abilities would be slightly reduced. Thirdly, The Berserker sovereign is dead. But this matter is still fake, and your identity has already been discovered. He looked at Chinyu, his eyes earnest. 30 years. You only have 30 years. Then, everything will be revealed to the world. At that time, the human cultivators will stop at nothing to kill you. Believe me, only by stepping into the Emperor realm will you have a chance at survival. Otherwise, you'll definitely die. Even if little Meaty and I act together and use all of our trump cards, we still won't be able to save you. Chinyu raised a hand and rubbed the space between his brows. Stepping into the Emperor realm in 30 years. Even though he'd already seen that door, he still felt pressure. Like a mountain. There was no pretense at all. It was true. The Berserker Sovereign Realm was known as the Apex Realm, the level of the world's overlords. In the past tens of millions of years, countless geniuses had shone like stars in the sky, but how many of them had stepped into the Emperor Realm? The Great Western Desolation, a vast empire that had accumulated countless years of history, only had 7 of them. How difficult would it be to step into that realm? Chinyu's expression suddenly changed as he looked at the man in front of him. Half. The man shook his head. Chinyu's face was ashen. Just like that. What nonsense was this about profiting? He might as well just tell him to enjoy his time in peace and wait for his death after 30 years. If there's a chance, we don't want you to die, but 30 years is too short, so short that you can't afford to make any mistakes. The man slowly said, Little Meat has already arranged the specifics. You must hurry up from here on out. He turned around and walked out. Chinyu gritted his teeth and growled. You're leaving just like that? I'm leaving. Don't think about it anymore. Did you forget something? The man didn't turn around. He tossed out an item. Chinyu reached out and caught it. The item unfurled and wrapped around his wrist, turning into a light green bracelet. Traces of joy and joy flowed into Chinyu's heart. I lent it to you. Remember to return it to me in the future. Also, only 6 years have passed in the Desolation Realm. You really are just scaring yourself. The man's footsteps paused as he walked out of the cave. His eyes fell on Baiji. Put away all your thoughts. If you dare move even a little bit, you will die. Whoosh! His figure vanished into thin air. Baiji knelt on the ground, her face pale, as if she was seriously ill. Her entire body was drenched in sweat. The footsteps stopped. She raised her head with difficulty, her lips moving. Madam, bang, Baiji was sent flying away by a heavy kick. Merits and demerits cancel each other out. After this kick, you can still live for the time being, but don't think that I will save you. Her eyes fell on Dog Leftover. He struggled to stand up and kowtowed with difficulty. As a dog, you are qualified. I am very satisfied with you. With a kick, Dog Leftover tumbled on the ground, tumbling several times before coming to a stop. If I tell you where to go, your life will be preserved for the time being. But if you can't arrive in time, then you are fated to die. Dog Leftover stood up. After respectfully bowing, without hesitation, he rose up from the ground and vanished without a trace. She had also been kicked, but Dog Leftover had survived. Baiji's merits and demerits cancel each other out. The disparity could be seen with a single glance. But her eyes were still as calm as before, without the least bit of resentment or unwillingness. As her eyes fell on Meaty, there was only respect and reverence. Humph! With a sneer, Meaty stepped into the cave. Towards the eyes behind her, she didn't feel the slightest bit of pity. An idiot should enjoy the treatment of an idiot. Otherwise, wouldn't the smart people of this world suffer too much? Chinyu had already tidied himself up. It wouldn't be too much to say that he had rosy lips and white teeth. After waking up, he discovered that he had undone his changing state and returned to his original appearance. He wasn't just a little bit more handsome than Ning Qin. Meaty curled her lips. She looked him up and down several times. Your appearance isn't too bad. Chinyu ignored her teasing. He slowly said, Baiji has been loyal and devoted to you. Her performance these past 6 years is the best evidence. Before she finished speaking, she was interrupted. Meaty sneered, Do I need you to teach me how to do things? She sat down, still seething with anger. Vanish. Men really couldn't be trusted. He had clearly promised to keep his mouth shut, but in the blink of an eye, he had sold her out. This was simply preposterous. Feeling the way Yu was looking at her, Meaty couldn't stand it any longer. Her eyes widened, and she fiercely said, Yu, listen to me well. I was willing to save you because you saved me first. So we are even now. You don't owe me anything, so don't look at me like that. It makes my entire body feel uncomfortable. Yu thought for a moment and nodded. If you say it like that, it actually makes sense. It's just like how you easily paid off all my debts in the past. An unnatural expression appeared on Meaty's face. She didn't look at Yu. Speak frankly. What do you want? Yu said, Tell me, what is your current condition? In order to save me, what price did you pay? Meaty coldly sneered. Don't listen to that person's boasting. He's just trying to make himself look good so that you think you've already profited by surviving. This matter, he's responsible for it. If he had acted earlier, then everything would have been fine. Why did he have to wait until the end? Yu looked at her, not speaking. Meaty spread out her hands and spun them around twice. Look carefully. I'm perfectly fine right now. There isn't a problem at all. Seeing Yu remain silent, his eyes shrouding her, Meaty angrily rubbed her temples. That's right, I paid some price. If I was omnipotent in the past, then right now, I only have around 9,900 abilities left. Yu said, Tell me in detail. Meaty hatefully said, Tell me in detail. Now that I have returned to this world, I can only display the strength of a ruler. Once I exceed that, I will lose my source and need to sleep to restore it. This can be considered an additional limit to my strength. Are you satisfied now? She angrily said, Yu, that's enough. If I knew you were so annoying, I would have just watched you die. Yu nodded. Then let's leave it at that. He took a deep breath and slowly let out. Looking at the gloomy Meaty across from him, he bitterly smiled inwardly. She definitely wasn't speaking the truth. Although he didn't know who the owner of that voice in Meaty's home was, it wasn't hard to determine just how terrifying that person's boundary was through what the little blue lamp had added. A single word could determine the fate of a living being. Even if Yu was at the ruler realm, he would still be judged dead on the spot by that single word. If Meaty wanted to reverse this matter and forcefully save him, the price she had to pay would definitely be far greater than what she had said. The so-called upper limit of the ruler realm's strength should only be one of the symptoms she couldn't conceal after paying the price. Just because she wasn't willing to say it didn't mean that Yu wouldn't admit it, nor did it mean that the two of them were even. For instance, the debt that Yu had mentioned just now was the help that Meaty had given him really something that could be repaid with the value of treasures? Moreover, those things had been loaned to him afterwards. A person couldn't be without a conscience. This was why Yu had disregarded the dangers and first sought out His Excellency, the ruler. After receiving his reminder, he had sought out the little blue lamp. He hadn't hesitated to expose his greatest secret in order to save her. There were some things that one could choose not to do, but there were some things that one absolutely had to do. Otherwise, even if one lived for 1,000 years, 10,000 years, even if one lived as long as the heavens themselves, so what? Looking back, his heart felt uneasy. Looking at Meaty, Yu smiled and said, Tell me, what are we going to do next? I heard that you've already made arrangements. He would keep it in his heart for now. If there was a chance in the future, he would do what he had to do. There was no need to say too much. Chapter 1632. Nang Country, at the foot of Xiaoyang Mountain, the former Ox Village. It still retained this name, but it had become the ancestral land of the Qin dynasty that was heavily guarded. In the blink of an eye, 60 years had passed. 6 years had passed in the outside world, but in this strange place where time flowed at an astonishing speed, nearly 2,000 years had passed. Taoist Cloudy Mist had obtained the great Tao, and his cultivation had increased tremendously. He was now on the top figures in Nank and Huangliang countries. He was still free and unfettered. It was said that once he obtained the longevity fruit, he could live with the world. The Qin family that was protected by his bloodline rose with the tide. The family's power continued to grow. Finally, 200 years ago, they established a country and became the third country in the world after Nank and Huangliang countries, the Great Qin. It was rumored that after the Qin dynasty was established, the founding Qin emperor moved the graves of the two ancestors who were the foundation of the family into the emperor's mausoleum to stabilize the destiny of the Qin dynasty. Taoist cloudy mist appeared in the Qin palace. No one knew what he said to the Qin emperor, but this matter was dropped. The Qin dynasty designated an area of 800 miles around Xiaoyang Mountain as the ancestral land of the Great Qin dynasty. The imperial court sent a large number of soldiers to guard it. After 200 years, the Qin dynasty grew stronger day by day. The weather was good, the country was prosperous, and the people were at peace. The ancestors' protection naturally contributed to this. The Qin emperor set out a month ago, leaving the imperial capital to patrol the world. He arrived at the ancestral land yesterday. He would fast and bathe for 3 days before personally paying his respects to the ancestors. The heavily guarded surroundings of Xiaoyang Mountain were now even more heavily guarded, attracting the attention of all the people in the world. The Qin dynasty had been in power for 200 years, and the Qin emperor was now in his 4th generation. The current emperor was called Qin Xuanzong. He was a dignified, middle-aged man in his 50s. At this moment, he was wearing a white robe. He was riding an ordinary carriage with only a woman from the palace, a young son, and 2 old eunuchs. They were slowly heading towards the Taoist temple halfway up Xiaoyang Mountain. The temple was called Xiaoyang Mountain, but it had not been famous for many years. Only those who had read the secret records of the royal family could discover the close relationship between this Taoist temple and the Great Qin Empire. Every emperor would return to the ancestral land to pay respects to the ancestors 3 to 5 years before they were crowned the crown prince. This was also the reason for today's trip. The 2 eunuchs had been in the palace for a long time and were absolutely trustworthy. One drove the carriage while the other closed his eyes to rest. Inside the carriage, the noblewoman in the palace, who obviously already knew something, couldn't help but feel nervous. She grabbed her son's hand, intending to remind him of something. However, she was afraid that if she said too much, she would make a mistake and lose her usual grace. Qin Xuanzong smiled. He didn't care. When he followed his father to the Qingliang temple, his mother was even more nervous than imperial concubine Shu. The succession of the throne could not be decided by the Qin emperor alone. It seemed like a scandal of the imperial family, but in reality, it was a secret that the Qin clan accepted wholeheartedly. Although there were records of how their ancestors formed the celestial destiny, nothing in the world could withstand the erosion of time, not to mention the small ox village at the foot of the mountain. The Qin clan, which was born as a countryside doctor, had now enjoyed the power of the country for more than 200 years. The difference between them was more than just the difference between heaven and earth. No matter how great the favor was, there would always be a time when it was used up. And whether or not they had the support of the top immortals on the mountain, the Qin Empire would naturally be in a different situation. All they could do was maintain enough respect and try their best to increase their karmic ties with the immortals on the mountain peak. There was no need to say more about the crown prince, and this was also a heavy karma. So regarding the matter of the emperor's inheritance, it was necessary to ask the old Taoist in the Qingliang temple who had been cultivating in seclusion. Within the Qin clan, anyone with a discerning eye was sincerely convinced by the brilliant plan that the founding emperor had come up with in the past. The carriage stopped. 2 eunuchs jumped down and respectfully waited at the side. Qin Xuanzong pushed open the door and stepped down. He lightly said, "You wait here." "Yes, your majesty." He took his son's hand and glanced at imperial concubine Shu. Imperial concubine Shu faintly smiled. "Let's go." The emperor personally knocked on the door. The door of the Taoist temple opened and a little Taoist boy walked out. He respectfully bowed. "Your majesty, master invites you in." Qin Xuanzong smiled and returned the greeting. "Thank you, little immortal master." The little Taoist boy's face was tense, but he was still somewhat cautious. It was probably because he hadn't been on the mountain for long. The fourth prince was a 12 or 13 years old boy. He looked at the little Taoist boy in front of him with red lips and white teeth. He smiled and said, "You are so handsome. When you grow up, you must be very good-looking." The woman in the palace was startled. Her expression changed slightly, and she was about to speak, but she was stopped by Qin Xuanzong's eyes. The little Taoist boy's face was slightly red, but he wasn't angry. He whispered, "You are also very good-looking." Qin Xuanzong laughed out loud. After entering the temple, the Taoists in the Qingliang temple received an order to stay in their rooms and not go out. The little Taoist boy led the way and brought the 3 people of the imperial family to the backyard where the master was in seclusion. "Master, His Majesty is here." Come in." He pushed the door open and entered. The little Taoist boy walked to the side and slightly lowered his eyes, looking like a calm adult. The fourth prince found this very interesting. His lips curled up into a smile as he quietly sized up everything in the room. He didn't know the truth of today's trip. He only thought that his father brought him to see an immortal master who was on good terms with the imperial family. Qin Xuanzong looked at the room. Taoist cloudy mist's appearance hadn't changed in the slightest from decades ago. He suppressed his surging and complex emotions and cupped his hands. "Qin Sheng, I brought my concubine, Shu, and my son, Qin Song, to visit the old immortal." He didn't have much etiquette, but his tone was very respectful. The fourth prince was startled and hurriedly followed his father and bowed. Over the years, he had seen many immortal masters on the mountain. Some of them were very famous in the 3 countries. However, he had never seen his father being so respectful to someone before. His attitude was so humble. Taoist Cloudy Mist smiled and raised his hand. "Your Majesty, there is no need to be so polite. Please sit." He turned around and ordered, "Little boy, serve tea to His Majesty, Her Highness, and the prince." Qin Xuanzong said, "I don't dare to trouble little immortal master. Qin Song, go and pour tea for the old immortal." His eyes were obscure and deep. If he didn't truly like Qin Xuanzong, he wouldn't have gone against the opinions of the masses and chosen the fourth prince, the son of a concubine. He brought him all the way to Qingliang Mountain because he had high hopes for him. Qin Song took a deep breath. "Yes, Imperial Father." He took 2 steps forward and bowed. "Old immortal master, Qin Song doesn't understand the etiquette of the mountain. If I offended you, please forgive me." He poured the tea until it was 80% full. He covered the cup and slowly returned to his original place. This simple matter caused beads of sweat to appear on the forehead of this 10-year-old noble. Taoist Cloudy Mist glanced at Qin Song, who had returned to his original place. He faintly smiled and picked up the teacup. Qin Xuanzong immediately revealed a smile. The eyes of the woman next to him reddened. She nearly cried on the spot. Qin Xuanzong bowed. "Old immortal master, please bestow me a name." At this moment, a word appeared in Taoist Cloudy Mist's mind. He smiled. "Mu." 15 years later, Qin Xuanzong passed away. The 5th emperor of the Great Qin, Qin Muzong, inherited the throne. On the day that Emperor Mu of Qin ascended to the throne, outside the Ox village of the Qin dynasty, a young man appeared out of thin air in the graveyard of the Qin clan's ancestors. He stared at the gravestone that had been weathered by the wind and rain for thousands of years. 6 years ago, Li Mu came here once. He hesitated whether or not to make a move. He opened the coffin to take a look to confirm his thoughts. But in the end, he still didn't make a move. After that, every year, Li Mu would come here once. He would do nothing but quietly stay here for an entire day. No one had ever discovered his whereabouts. Even Taoist Cloudy Mist, who had been quietly cultivating on Qingliang Mountain and was known to have an unfathomable cultivation level. Today, as he looked at the tombstone in front of him, the depths of Li Mu's eyes became increasingly deep, like a bottomless sea. He frowned and slowly said, "Is it just a coincidence that the Great Qin Empire is here? Or is there a deeper meaning?" Li Mu felt even more awe and fear towards the madam that he had never truly met. When her whereabouts were unknown, he didn't act rashly. Now that she had returned, Li Moon naturally wouldn't act again. He would look and look again. He never lacked patience. If he couldn't see clearly in this life, then he would wait for the next reincarnation. West Desolate Border Military, Mine Cave. Marquis Zhongwu Ningqin's whereabouts were unknown. Although the imperial capital announced that they had sent Marquis Zhongwu for another important matter, as time passed, some rumors continued to spread. Finally, there were bad signs. True Saint Bayou buried his head under the lamp, frowning as he dealt with military affairs. In just a few years, his hair had turned white. It could be seen that the past few years had been really difficult. In fact, if it weren't for his royal bloodline and his powerful uncle, the sky-bearing king, True Saint Bayou would have been ostracized long ago. Oh! With a low shout, True Saint Bayou suddenly looked up, his eyes shining brightly. A figure walked out of the darkness. What came into view was a strange, yet familiar face. It was as if he had seen it somewhere before. The other party didn't attack, and instead appeared on his own initiative. True Saint Bayou took a deep breath and coldly said, "Who are you? How dare you trespass into an important place of the army? Don't you know that the military law is ruthless?" Qin Yu thought for a moment and slowly said, "Southwest, desolate region, broken world, East Sea, one." Across from him, True Saint Bayou's eyes widened. "It's you." His joy faded and he asked, "What did I say that day?" A strange expression appeared on Qin Yu's face. "Called me Brother Wanlu, said you wanted to kill the enemy side by side with me, and you seem to have a good impression of me." True Saint Bayou was overjoyed. "It's really you. I knew that we would meet again in the future after we parted ways in the past." He strode over and patted Qin Yu's shoulder. "When I returned to the West Desolate, I tried to find you, but I didn't get any news. You are, if it's not convenient to say, then forget it. You, and I don't need to care about our identities." Qin Yu was a bit dazed. He looked at the excited True Saint Bayou and thought, "Those white hair at your temples are fake, right? How come you haven't made any progress in the past few years? Or could it be that I really am your nemesis? As soon as we met, did your brain cramp?" Qin Yu took a deep breath and rubbed his face. His voice changed a bit. "Bayou, take a good look at who I am." Shua, the face in front of him changed. With the crackling of bones and muscles, the one who appeared in front of him was the Marquis Ningqin, who had been missing for 6 years. True Saint Bayou sucked in a breath of cold air. His eyes widened and his fingers trembled, unable to speak. Qin Yu was a bit worried that he would faint in the next moment. Why you? Qin Yu coughed. "I can explain this matter." An hour later, the dreaming True Saint Bayou sat in a chair in a daze. Then he lifted his hand and slapped himself across the face. "Ha, it hurts." His eyes brightened. "It's true, it's all true. Ha ha. No wonder I always felt that the Marquis was pleasing to the eye and that I felt close to him from the bottom of my heart. So he is Brother Wanlu. My, Bayou's, judgment of people is as accurate as ever and incomparably powerful." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.